The first thing I did after being diagnosed with terminal cancer was ask my lawyer to bring me a divorce agreement. Married for 5 years, she always had someone else in her heart. I've been hospitalized for half a month, vomiting blood. My wife, who is a doctor, works in this very hospital, yet she hasn't visited me once. The smell of disinfectant in the hospital room was pungent. I leaned against the headboard, my face probably paler than the walls. Lawyer Zhang, sitting across from me, pushed up his glasses and took a document from his briefcase, but hesitated to hand it over. Mr. Yang, a divorce requires signatures from both parties, followed by a 30-day cooling-off period. Given your current physical condition, I really don't recommend it. I've already made up my mind, I interrupted him. My voice was a bit hoarse but firm. I'll get her to sign it. Lawyer Zhang hesitated, but ultimately swallowed his words. He stood up and gently placed the divorce agreement on the nightstand by my bed. Take care of yourself, then. The hospital room door clicked shut, leaving me all alone again. 30 days. I silently repeated the number in my head. I have to hold on until then. Suddenly, a churning, agonizing pain erupted in my stomach. The familiar cramping sensation struck again. I violently leaned over and grabbed the trash can next to the bed. Another fit of violent coughing hit me, and I vomited a large mouthful of dark red blood. My vision went black in patches. It took a long time for the sharp pain to slowly recede, leaving behind a hollow, draining weakness. The air in the room was suffocatingly stuffy. I forced myself up, wanting to go downstairs for some fresh air. Just as I reached the first-floor lobby, I bumped right into a doctor in a white coat hurrying over. "Xiao Yu?" The familiar voice carried a hint of surprise. "What are you doing at the hospital?" I looked up and met Zhou Zixuan's beautiful eyes. She was wearing a well-fitted white coat, her hair meticulously pinned up to reveal a smooth forehead. Her delicate face was currently filled with confu. "Shan, how ironic. I've been hospitalized here for almost half a month, yet my wife, Zhou Zixuan, had absolutely no idea I was here, even though this was the hospital where she worked. Somewhere in my heart, it felt like being pricked by fine needles, a dense, subtle ache. But I didn't blame her. In our 5 years of marriage, when had she ever truly cared about me? Forget it. I'm dying anyway, so there's no need to drag her down anymore. She never loved me in the first place." I forced a twitch at the corners of my mouth, trying to make my smile look natural. Enough. I came for a checkup and got admitted while I was at it, to make the insurance reimbursement easier. My voice was so calm it even surprised me. Zhou Zixuan nodded. As expected, she didn't ask any further questions. She shifted her feet, looking like she was about to leave. Not a single extra word of concern. I laughed at myself inwardly, but as she brushed past me, I still called out to her. "Oh, right. The final step for the house transfer paperwork needs your signature." I pulled the divorce agreement from the folder I was carrying, deliberately covering the title on the cover with my hand. I flipped straight to the signature line on the last page and handed it to her along with a pen. Zhou Zixuan took it and sharply furrowed her brows. Years of professional habit made her particularly sensitive to documents. She instinctively tried to flip back to read the contents, but just as her fingertips were about to touch the previous page, a tall figure happened to walk in through the hospital entrance, stepping into her peripheral vision. It was Sun Siyu. Zhou Zixuan's movements paused, her gaze involuntarily drifting in that direction. She paused for less than a second before pulling her gaze back. She quickly signed her name at the end of the agreement, then shoved the document and pen back into my hands. "All right, if that's all, you should head back. I have a consultation to get to. I'm busy." Her tone carried its usual impatience. After speaking, she didn't even spare me another glance. She turned and walked briskly towards Sun Siyu. The moment she turned, I clearly saw a bright, vivid smile bloom on her face. That was a look I had never seen in our 5 years of marriage. My hanging heart finally dropped heavily. But what followed was an even more turbulent, throbbing pain that instantly gripped my heart. Not far away, they stood together. Sun Siyu was tall and handsome, and Zhou Zixuan was bright and beautiful. They truly looked like a match made in heaven. I turned my head away, not wanting to look anymore, and dragged my heavy steps toward the elevator. Just as I reached it, I faintly heard their laughing conversation drifting down the hallway. "Sister Zixuan, was that your patient just now?" It was Sun Siyu's clear voice, an old patient coming back for a checkup. Zhou Zixuan's voice was so gentle it could melt ice, a stark contrast to the coldness she had shown me moments ago, like two completely different people. "Siyu, wait for me a moment. I just need to hand over a few patients' files to my colleagues, and I'll be right with you. It's a promise. I'm treating you to a movie today." Her voice was full of eager excitement. I gripped the now effective divorce agreement, the edges of the paper cutting painfully into my palm. Thinking back on the bits and pieces of the past 5 years, a miserable smile couldn't help but tug at the corners of my. I really was here for a checkup, and the result of that checkup was that I only had 1 month left to live. "Soon, Zhou Zixuan. Don't be in such a hurry. I'll be able to give you your freedom back completely very soon." Returning home, I set down the large pile of medication prescribed by the hospital. I started slowly packing up the things that belonged to me from after we got married. There were actually quite a lot of odds and ends. I planned to clear them all out. I didn't want to leave anything behind to be an eyesore to her after I was gone. Perhaps my body had truly reached its limit. After just a short while of packing, I was panting with exhaustion and had to stop to rest. I went back to the bedroom to lie down for a bit, and immediately saw the massive wedding photo hanging above the bed. In the photo, Zhou Zixuan was wearing a pure white wedding dress, but her smile looked somewhat stiff and distant. In the past, blinded by love, I thought that smile was incredibly sweet. Looking at it now, I only found it glaringly painful. Without hesitation, I stepped on a chair, took it down, and shoved it straight into the deepest corner under the bed. Out of sight, out of mind. Maybe it would save me some grief. For the rest of the day, I was caught in a cycle of packing, resting, and packing again. Until the early hours of the morning, when the sound of a key turning came from the front door. Zhou Zixuan was back. I was in the study sorting through some old books and documents. She poked her head in, glanced at me, and said nothing. She just placed a takeout bag she was carrying onto the desk. Then she turned and went into the bedroom. She probably noticed the empty wall while changing clothes in the bedroom. Less than 2 minutes later, she came back. Leaning against the study door, she frowned and asked, "Where did the wedding photo in the bedroom go?" I looked up and met her gaze calmly. The frame was a bit loose. I was worried it might fall and hit someone, so I took it down. I've already contacted a shop to custom make a new frame, but it hasn't arrived yet. She accepted this explanation, her face expressionless. Before leaving, as if suddenly remembering, she added a sentence. "I brought you some late-night snacks. They're on the desk. Get some rest soon." Late-night snacks? I belatedly stood up. I opened the packaging bag printed with the logo of a Sichuan restaurant. A strong, spicy aroma immediately rushed out. It was boiled beef and chili. Oil. I silently stared at the dish covered in red oil and heavy sauce. My stomach seemed to start faintly cramping again. My eyes inexplicably grew hot. In our 5 years of marriage, my stomach had always been weak. I never dared to touch spicy, irritating food. This was something she clearly knew. Yet, even such a basic thing, Zhou Zixuan had never taken to heart. If it were in the past, even just to not waste her good intentions and make her a little happy, I would have forced myself to eat it. But now, my body was completely ruined and couldn't handle any more torment. I picked up the bag, went downstairs, and threw it into the trash can, completely untouched. Then I went back home and cooked myself a small bowl of plain white porridge. From today on, I will no longer wrong myself for Zhou Zixuan anymore. 5 years. I lived for her for 5 years. For this final month, I think it's time I lived for myself for once. After finishing the porridge, my stomach felt a bit better. It was already late. Remembering the doctor's orders not to stay up late, I went back to the bedroom to rest. Zhou Zixuan had already finished showering. She was lying on her side on the other half of the bed, her back to me, breathing evenly as if asleep. On any normal night, as long as we shared a bed, I would habitually reach out and gently hug her from behind. She never resisted, but she also never turned around to return my embrace. But tonight, I didn't move. I also turned my back to her, an invisible chasm separating us. After a few minutes, Zhou Zixuan's slightly confused voice came from behind me, sounding exceptionally clear in the silent night. "Not hugging tonight?" My body stiffened slightly, and I quickly made up an excuse. "I'm a bit tired. Let's just sleep." She gave a soft and said nothing more. A faint rustling sound came from behind me. She had probably turned back around. I thought the night would pass peacefully like this, but not long after. Zhou Zixuan suddenly clicked on the bedside lamp and sat up. "Oh, right." She rubbed her eyes, her tone carrying the lethargy of having just woken up. "That contract you had me sign today, let me take a closer look at the clauses. Make sure there aren't any loopholes." My entire body jolted, and my heart instantly started pounding so hard it nearly burst out of my chest. "You really want to read it?" I turned around and looked at her. In the dim light of the bedroom, her face looked somewhat blurry. I couldn't help but feel a wave of nervousness. It wasn't that I was afraid she would refuse the divorce once she found out. At this point, I knew better than anyone. Divorce might be a relief for her. This disguise of a real estate contract was like my final pathetic fig leaf at the end of our marriage. I didn't want it torn away right in front of my face. "What's wrong?" She seemed to notice the oddity in my tone, her brows furrowing slightly. "Nothing." Things had come to this. Hiding was useless. I threw off the covers, got out of bed, and walked to the study. I picked up the divorce agreement and returned to the bedroom. I handed it to her. The cold paper touched her finger tips. She took it, pinching the cover, about to flip it open. Right at that moment, her phone on the nightstand suddenly lit up, followed by a frantic ringtone that shattered the room's silence. Zhou Zixuan glanced at the caller ID almost reflexively. The next second, she immediately tossed the unopened agreement aside and quickly grabbed her phone. She answered the call, her voice filled with a concern and softness I had never heard before. "It's so late. Why are you suddenly calling me?" The other end of the line was noisy. I could faintly hear music and a blurry male voice. "Sister Zixuan, I feel awful. I drank too much and can't get back. Can you come keep me?" "Penny?" It was Sun Xiu's voice. Even though it was slightly distorted through the receiver, I recognized it instantly. Zhou Zixuan's expression didn't change much under the light, but she quickly shot me a glance with a trace of imperceptible panic. Then, without the slightest hesitation, she spoke into the phone. "Okay, send me the address. Stay right where you are. I'll be right there." She hung up the phone, threw off the covers, and immediately started putting on her coat. She had completely forgotten about the divorce agreement. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching her hurried movements, my chest feeling suffocatingly tight. In the end, I couldn't hold back and asked, just as she was about to leave. It's so late, who's looking for you? Where are you going? Zhou Zixuan paused while putting on her shoes. She didn't turn around, and her voice was a bit strained. It's Director Liu from the hospital. A critical patient I'm in charge of suddenly became unstable. I have to go check on them right away. I probably won't be back tonight, so don't wait up for me. Get some rest. After speaking, she opened the door, and her figure quickly vanished outside. The room instantly plunged into dead silence, leaving only the sound of my increasingly heavy breathing. I suddenly laughed. I chuckled softly, and as I laughed, tears rolled down without warning, scalding my cheeks painfully. I wiped my face in self-mockery. I picked up the abandoned divorce agreement on the bed and gently smoothed out the wrinkles. It was so close just now, just 1 second away. If she had just flipped to the first page and seen the words divorce agreement, everything would have been out in the open, but she didn't care. That night, I locked the bedroom door and lay in bed with my eyes open until the sky turned pale. I lay there until I simply couldn't anymore, then got up to continue packing the things I hadn't finished sorting out. After we got married, filled with passion and longing, I bought countless matching couple items. Every single one carried my most naive fantasies about our home and us. But Zhou Zixuan always found various excuses and never used a single one of them. Those objects, filled with foolish love, just gathered dust in the corners, becoming ironic props in my one-man show. Now, I no longer clung to them. I booked a door-to-door recycling service on a second-hand platform, planning to get rid of all these things completely. While waiting for them to arrive, I scrolled through my phone for a bit. Driven by some inexplicable impulse, I logged into an alternate WeChat account I barely used. It was one I registered a long time ago for some unimportant questionnaire, one I had almost forgotten about myself. I refreshed the moment's feed, and a new post violently crashed into my sight. The poster was Zhou Zixuan, just 10 minutes ago. The content was a photo. The angle looked like it was taken from a hotel room's floor-to-ceiling window. The morning light was just breaking, dyeing the sky a gentle orange. Pink. The caption was simple: God makes you wait so you can meet the right person. Feeling blessed right now. I froze completely, my fingers stiffening over the screen. A few seconds later, I quickly switched back to my main WeChat account and opened Zhou Zixuan's moments. It was still that cold, horizontal line, and the prompt, friend only displays moments from the last 3 days. Completely blank. It turned out she had forgotten to block my alternate account when she made the post. A massive sense of absurdity and a stinging pain hit me simultaneously. I tugged at the corners of my mouth, only to find I couldn't even squeeze out a self-deprecating smile. At this moment, I finally understood with crystal clarity that in Zhou Zixuan's world, I was never the right person. Never. Since that was the case, why should I continue to cling to her and be an annoyance? It was better to leave on my own accord sooner, at least leaving us with a final shred of crumbling dignity. The second-hand recycler finally arrived. I carried a large box of packed couple items downstairs, handed it over, and was just about to turn and head back up, when I unexpectedly bumped right into Zhou Zixuan coming back. She looked at me, then at the unsealed box of miscellaneous items on the ground. Her gaze lingered for a moment on a few conspicuous couple items inside. Aren't these things from our house? She blurted out. My grip on the box tightened, but I tried my best to keep my tone calm. They've been sitting around too long and are a bit outdated. They take up space, so I called someone to get rid of them. I'll slowly pick out some new ones to replace them over the next while. Thinking of that, moments post hidden only from me, another sharp pang of pain pierced my heart, but I couldn't let it show on my face. Oh, okay. Zhou Zixuan nodded, didn't ask any further, and walked straight past me, heading upstairs first. I stood there, watching her back disappear into the stairwell, a cold, self-mocking smile slowly curving my lips. Zhou Zixuan was such a smart person. If she had paid even the slightest bit of attention, how could she not have noticed my abnormal mood and behavior lately? But she didn't. She never did. But it didn't matter anymore. Soon, I would completely disappear from her world. Forever. Zhou Zixuan came home at this time because she had left the treatment plan documents for an important patient at home and came back to get them. When I walked in, she was in the study, head down, rummaging through things. There was no communication between us. The air was so quiet that only the rustling of paper could be heard. My body was becoming more and more useless. Just carrying a box downstairs made me feel like I had exhausted all my strength. I collapsed onto the sofa, finding even breathing to be a struggle. And suddenly, a ding-dong notification sound rang out. Only then did I notice Zhou Zixuan's phone sitting on the living room coffee table. The screen lit up with a new message. My gaze casually swept over it. It was a WeChat preview. Dr. Zhou, our department is having a dinner tonight. You absolutely have to bring your boyfriend along. Everyone is waiting to see him. Boyfriend? I frowned. The faint little flame in my heart felt like it had been doused with cold water, hissing and sending up a puff of white smoke. I wanted to pretend I hadn't seen it, but when I looked up, I locked eyes right with Zhou Zixuan, who was coming out of the study holding documents. She had clearly seen the lit phone screen too. A flash of embarrassment and panic, like being caught red-handed, crossed her face. She opened her mouth, seemingly wanting to explain but not knowing where to be. Jin. Looking at her deeply conflicted expression, that laughable bit of pride and expectation in my heart suddenly sank to the bottom. I forced out what was probably a very ugly smile and spoke up first. So, are you planning to take me tonight? As soon as the words left my mouth, I honestly didn't hold out any hope. Because Zhou Zixuan and I were married, none of her colleagues at the hospital, or even many of her friends, knew she was married, let alone knew of my exes. Tense. This was also why I had been hospitalized at her hospital for half a month without ever being recognized by her colleagues. I knew she didn't have me in her heart, but when it really came down to it, I still acted like an idiot, wanting to see what her attitude toward me actually was. Even if it was just a little bit of conflict, a little bit of hesitation, that would be fine. Xiao Yu, Zhou Zixuan's brows furrowed tighter. The expression on her face became even more strained. It was obvious reluctance. Sure enough, her reaction was like an ice pick that had long been sharpened, stabbing steadily, accurately, and ruthlessly into the softest part of my heart. The pain wasn't intense, but it was drawn out and sharp, carrying a bone-chilling coldness that instantly sobered me up. She had never placed me in the position of a husband, or even a partner. Not even once. I smiled bitterly in my heart. I stopped making things difficult for her, leaving myself a final shred of dignity. I offered her an out. Actually, I was just about to tell you that I have dinner plans with a friend tonight, so I probably won't have time to go with you. This answer clearly made Zhou Zixuan sigh in relief. Her tense shoulders visibly relaxed, and a trace of relieved ease even appeared on her face. Oh, I see. All right then. Next time there's a chance, I'll introduce you to them. I gave a soft and said nothing more, pretending to be tired and closing my eyes. That night, Zhou Zixuan went to the department. Dinner alone. As soon as she entered the private room, a few female colleagues she was usually close with enthusiastically pulled her over, seeing no one behind her. Everyone immediately started teasing her. Zixuan, didn't we tell you to bring your boyfriend? Where is he? Yeah, don't try to lie and say you don't have one. We saw with our own eyes the other day a tall, handsome guy came looking for you, and you even treated him to a movie. 2. Come on, confess. When did you start dating? You hid it so well. The colleagues chattered away, teasing her until Zhou Zixuan gradually found it hard to fend them off. Under everyone's enthusiastic onslaught, she had no choice but to nod and agree. All right, I'll ask and see if he's free. But when she took out her phone, two choices lay before her, whether to call me, her legally rightful married husband, or her childhood friend, the boy next door. Soon see you. Unlike before, this time it would be appearing in the capacity of a boy friend. Zhou Zixuan looked at the two names in her contacts, her fingertip hovering over the screen for a few seconds. Finally, as if making some sort of decision, her finger landed on Sun Siyu's name. The call connected, and Sun Siyu readily agreed. Not long after, he appeared at the door of the private room. As soon as he walked in, he immediately attracted the gazes of many female doctors present. Gasps of admiration rose one after a name to other. No wonder Zixuan kept him hidden. He's such a handsome guy. Hey handsome, tell us, when did you two start dating? Who chased who? Zixuan, you're too mean. Keeping such a great catch to yourself until now. Facing everyone's questions and teasing, Sun Siyu handled it perfectly. He even took advantage of the moment when no one was looking to secretly squeeze Zhou Zixuan's hand under the table. His face showed no sign of discomfort from being teased, just a natural smile as he replied. When it came up that Sun Siyu was 3 years younger than Zhou Zixuan, the atmosphere grew even livelier. Everyone seemed eager to dig up all the juicy details. Zhou Zixuan gradually struggled to keep up, and the smile plastered on his face started to stiffen. Fortunately, the reliable Director Liu stepped in to bail him out. Director Liu pulled out a manila envelope and handed it to Zhou Zixuan. Xiao Zhou, I ran into a patient's family member downstairs earlier. They said they left some important documents in the ward and asked me to pass them along. Since you're heading down later, be a good lad and return this to them. Zhou Zixuan looked as if he'd just been granted a pardon. He shot Director Liu a grateful look, grabbed the envelope, and practically fled the private room. He waited in the hotel lobby for several minutes, but no one came to claim it. The night breeze was a bit chilly, and he was starting to lose his patience. Driven by a mix of annoyance and curiosity, he hesitated for a moment before popping open the seal. He figured he'd take a peek at the documents to see if he could figure out who they belonged to. Inside were 2 documents. One was a copy of a medical record. He quickly scanned the diagnosis, late-stage malignant tumor. The other was a voluntary waiver of marital assets for a divorce. How tragic. To be terminally ill and getting a divorce, even giving up everything they owned. For some reason, Zhou Zixuan's heart skipped a beat. A vague, indescribable sense of unease washed over him. He subconsciously reached to flip open the medical record to check the patient's name, but just as his fingertips brushed the name column, a pale hand with prominent knuckles suddenly reached out from the side, pressing firmly down on the medical record. A second later, the entire envelope was snatched away. Excuse me, these documents are... Zhou Zixuan yanked his hand back as if he'd been shocked. He looked up, ready to explain himself. But the moment he saw who it was, he froze completely. His voice cracked. Xiao Yu, what are you doing here? His eyes went wide, his gaze darting frantically between my face and the envelope in my hand. A terrifying thought suddenly struck him, making his voice tremble. Is this medical record yours? This asset waiver, is this yours too? Yang Xiao Yu, what exactly are you trying to pull? His tone was laced with shock and accusation, but if you listened closely, there was a faint, almost imperceptible trace of panic and concern. I looked him dead in the eye, forcing my voice to remain perfectly steady. They aren't mine. They belong to a friend. He doesn't want to be a burden to his wife. So, honestly, I never expected to run into him here. I never expected him to find out like this. To stumble upon the terminal illness and the divorce I had been trying so desperately to hide. For a moment, an absurd wave of panic washed over me. Really? Zhou Zixuan narrowed his eyes, staring intently at me. He seemed to be searching my face for any sign of a lie. He caught the fleeting flash of panic and the sickly pallor of my skin. He clearly didn't buy it. He reached out, trying to snatch the waiver back. He wanted to see it for himself. I stared at his outstretched hand. A bitter taste filled my mouth. I didn't even have the energy to stop him anymore. I just slowly closed my eyes, waiting for the moment the truth would be dragged out into the light. But the interrogation I was bracing for never came. A familiar male voice rang out beside him, and an arm slipped naturally around Zhou Zixuan's waist. Zixuan, what are you doing all the way down here? Everyone's waiting for you. Sun Siyu leaned in intimately, his tone casual and familiar. I opened my eyes. Not only did I see Sun Siyu clinging to him, but I also saw the sheer panic on Zhou Zixuan's face, the look of a man who had just been caught red-handed. He instinctively tried to pull away from Sun Siyu's grasp, opening his mouth to explain. But with Sun Siyu standing right there, he couldn't bring himself to acknowledge our relationship. Compared to his frantic panic, I felt unusually calm. My gaze swept coldly past Sun Siyu. I pulled the documents back, my voice distant and polite. I've got the documents. Thank you, Dr. Zhou. My friend is waiting for me, so I won't interrupt your party any longer. Without sparing them another glance, I turned on my heel and walked away. Driving home, my chest felt like it was stuffed with wet, heavy cotton. It was suffocating. My mind kept replaying the scene from the lobby on an endless loop. Sun Siyu's arm wrapped around Zhou Zixuan's waist, Zhou Zixuan's momentary stiffness, and the way he hadn't immediately pushed him away. As his husband, seeing that should have sent me into a blind rage. But maybe because I'd endured that exact same neglect 1,000 times over the past 5 years, my heart had simply gone numb. There was no violent heartbreak. Just an endless, freezing exhaustion crushing my chest, making every breath feel like a chore. 5 years of giving everything I had to a one-sided love. I had just been sleepwalking through it all. And now, this 30-day divorce cooling-off period felt like an eternity. Every single second was pure torture. The car window was down. The night wind whipped inside, stinging my eyes until my vision blurred. Before I knew it, 2 cold trails of liquid were running down my cheeks. I wiped my face. Tears. Pathetic. Before I could even swallow down the bitterness in my chest, my body decided to sound the alarm. A terrifying, familiar spasm started to twist in my stomach, growing tighter by the second. Not again. The agony exploded without warning, radiating out until it consumed every bone in my body. Beads of cold sweat broke out on my forehead, dripping down my face. My hands shook violently against the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white from my death grip. The doctor was right. The stomach really is tied to your emotions. It was probably grieving for me, screaming at me for being so worthless. I let out a bitter laugh, using every last ounce of strength I had to try and pull the car over. But my body was failing. Even the strength to press the brake pedal was rapidly draining away. My vision blurred and swayed. The world outside the windshield began to spin and warp. In the end, all I could do was watch helplessly as my car swerved and slammed straight into the guardrail. With a deafening crash, the airbag deployed, slamming brutally into my chest and stomach. The pain swallowed me like a tidal wave. Everything went black, and I lost consciousness. When I finally came to, the harsh stench of bleach and rubbing alcohol told me. I was back in the hospital. A young nurse was swapping out my IV bag. She let out a sigh of relief when she saw my eyes open. You're awake. How are you feeling? You only suffered some minor scrapes from the crash. We've already patched you up. But you need to call your family right away. The doctor needs to speak with them regarding your condition. I already knew exactly what she meant. I spoke calmly. I know about my illness. Whatever the doctor needs to say, they can say it to me. The nurse froze, staring at me in shock. You know? And you still drove yourself? Her expression turned dead serious. Mr. Yang, your condition is extremely critical. You need to call your family to come take care of you immediately. As of right now, you are not allowed to leave this hospital. Her lecture went in one ear and out the other. But I still had to deal with the fallout from the crash, and I was in no shape to go anywhere. My parents lived out of state. After thinking it over, I had no choice but to pull out my phone and call Zhou Zixuan. It rang and rang until it went straight to voicemail. No answer. I tried again. The string of red missed calls on my screen stung my eyes. My arm dropped weakly to my side, the phone slipping onto the bedsheets. It made sense. Right now, he was probably out drinking and laughing with his precious boyfriend, Sun Siyu, and all their friends. Why would he give a damn about an irrelevant soon-to-be ex-husband like me? The nurse noticed my defeated slump and the ashen color of my face. She couldn't help but ask, "Can't reach your partner? Do you want the hospital to contact your family on your behalf?" I slowly shook my head. No need. We're in the middle of our divorce cooling-off period. 20 days left. The nurse clearly hadn't expected that. She stared at me in shock. Even if you're getting a divorce, you're so sick right now. He should at least come check on you, right? Check on me? If Zhou Zixuan had ever actually looked at me, even just a passing glance, maybe things wouldn't have ended up like this. Maybe I wouldn't feel so utterly hopeless. For 5 years of marriage, I was like an idiot chasing the sun. I poured every ounce of my passion and soul into trying to get close to him, to warm his cold heart. But in the end, I never got a single shred of genuine affection in return. The first year, I cooked a different dinner every single night, waiting until the food went ice cold, waiting late into the night. He'd come home, walk right past the table without a glance, and coldly toss out, "I worked late, already ate." Then he'd shut the bedroom door in my face. The second year, he insisted on going to work while sick. I was worried sick about him. I took the day off just to make him some light, soothing porridge. I carefully brought it to his department at the hospital, but right in front of all his colleagues. He coldly knocked the thermos right out of my hands. "Yang Xiaoyu," he warned me. "Remember your place. Stop crossing the line." The scalding porridge spilled all over my hand that day, leaving blisters. But the burns hurt far less than the absolute ice in his eyes. The third year, I scrimped and saved 3 months of my salary to buy him a designer bag. I gave it to him, practically bursting with excitement. But he thought I had thrown out his ratty old canvas bag. He exploded at me. He didn't speak a single word to me for 6 whole months. It was only later that I found out the faded canvas bag was a high school graduation gift from Sun Siyu. He treasured it like it was made of gold. The 4th year, the 5th year, with every spark of hope, followed by a crushing wave of disappointment, my heart slowly grew cold. I had nothing left to give. All these years, I was the only one running toward him. And time again, he shoved me away. I finally accepted the truth. Zhou Zixuan never gave a damn about me. He never had a single shred of real feelings for me. So, he wasn't coming tonight. I knew that. I let out a bitter laugh and turned my phone screen toward the nurse, showing her the glaring wall of red missed calls. Otherwise, we wouldn't be getting a divorce. The nurse stared at the missed calls. She opened her mouth to speak, but all that came out was a helpless sigh. "Then at least call a friend or a coworker. You really shouldn't be alone right now." After the nurse left, I made a call to Li Feng. He was the only real friend I had in this entire city. Li Feng rushed over. First, he went to the traffic police station to sort out the accident paperwork. Then he came back to the hospital to handle my discharge. A few days later, my car was fixed, and he went with me to the auto shop to pick it up. I never expected to run into Zhou Zixuan at the auto shop. He looked shocked when he saw the lingering damage on the front of my car. "You were in an accident. When did this happen? Why didn't you tell me?" I looked up at him. The image of my phone screen, glowing with red missed calls that night, flashed through my mind. The explanation died in my throat. I swallowed the words back down. Forget it. What was the point? It was just a minor fender bender. I'm fine. I kept my tone perfectly flat. "You're always so busy, so I didn't bother telling you." Seeing my unnaturally calm, almost distant attitude, a strange pang of guilt flashed through Zhou Zixuan's chest. He opened his mouth, instinctively trying to explain himself. "By the way, about the other night, Siyu and I just bumped into each other at the restaurant. Everyone was just messing around. It was nothing. Really, don't overthink it." I nodded, looking away as I casually asked, "I heard he got a divorce?" Zhou Zixuan clearly hadn't expected the question. He froze for a second before nodding. "Yeah, a while ago." Well then I paused, my eyes locking onto his face. I forced a cold smile. "You must be thrilled. And pretty soon, you'll be even happier." I muttered that last part so quietly, I was practically talking to myself. "What does that mean?" Zhou Zixuan frowned. He hadn't quite caught what I said, nor did he understand it. He was just about to press the issue, when his phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID, his expression shifting slightly. He mouthed 1 second to me, then walked off to take the call. About 10 minutes later, Zhou Zixuan hung up and walked back over. By then, Li Feng and I were already in the car, ready to leave. The window was rolled down a crack, and my laughing voice drifted out. "What? There's only about 10 days left in the cooling-off period. Once that's over, it's a clean break. Finally, some peace and quiet. Divorce cooling-off period." Those words pierced Zhou Zixuan's ears like a needle. His heart violently clenched in his chest. He couldn't stop himself. From remembering the documents I had been holding outside the restaurant that night, the asset waiver, the terminal cancer diagnosis, a horrifying realization suddenly gripped him. He practically sprinted over to my car, grabbing the half-open window. His voice shook, though he didn't even realize it. "Yang Xiaoyu, what did you just say? What cooling-off period? Who's getting a divorce? Is it you? Are you divorcing me?" I hadn't expected such a massive reaction from him, let alone for him to charge over and interrogate me like this. Staring into his eyes that looked ready to tear right through my disguise, I felt a brief flash of panic, but I quickly forced myself to stay calm. Almost instinctively, I threw Li Feng under the bus, using him as a human shield. "Not me." I forced my tone to sound as casual as possible. "It's Li Feng. He's going through a divorce right now." I shot Li Feng a subtle look. Li Feng blinked in confusion, before catching my drift. Bracing himself against Zhou Zixuan's piercing glare, he awkwardly nodded. Yeah, it's me. Just some messy family drama." So it was Li Feng. For some reason, hearing that answer made the tight knot in Zhou Zixuan's chest instantly loosen. But then, the memory of that terminal cancer diagnosis flashed through his mind again. He turned a suspicious glare toward Li Feng, looking him up and down. With his years of medical experience, he could tell that while Li Feng looked a little tired, his complexion was healthy and he seemed perfectly fine. He definitely didn't look like a man dying of terminal cancer. His suspicions didn't fade. In fact, they only grew stronger. "And your illness?" he asked, staring at Li Feng, his tone probing. "Illness?" Li Feng shot me another look. Seeing my frantic eye signals, he had no choice but to keep lying. "Oh right, yeah, I've got some health issues. I don't want to be a burden to my family, so..." Even as he said it, the doubt on Zhou Zixuan's face didn't fade. His eyes screamed disbelief. Terrified that he'd blow our cover if he kept asking questions, I quickly cut in, forcing a heavy, sympathetic tone. "All right, that's enough. Zixuan, you're a doctor. You should understand how he feels. Sometimes, letting go is the best thing for everyone." I paused, deliberately changing the subject. "Actually, when I ran into you at the hospital the other day, I was there with him for a checkup. I was going to ask you to take a look at his charts. But you looked so busy, and you were with your friend. I didn't want to bother you." At the mention of the hospital, Zhou Zixuan's eyes darted away, a flash of guilt crossing his face. Sun Xiu had come to visit him that day. He wasn't sure if I was hinting at something, or if I had seen them together. "Oh, I see." Clearly flustered, he avoided my gaze, his tone turning dismissive. "Well, if your friend is feeling unwell, he needs to come into the hospital for a full workup. Don't put it off." Flustered, he lost all interest in interrogating Li Feng about his illness. He tossed out some generic medical advice and quickly dropped the subject. We had managed to dodge a bullet, but I didn't feel relieved in the slightest. I knew exactly what Zhou Zixuan was thinking. He didn't actually buy Li Feng's excuse. He was just terrified that I would start asking questions about him and Sun Xiu. Terrified that I'd figure out what was really going on between them. With his years of medical training, if he had just looked a little closer, he would have easily noticed that my complexion and my overall state were 1,000 times worse than Li Feng's. I had the pale, ashen look of a man who was already dying. But the moment Sun Xiu was involved, all of his logic and judgment went completely out the window. I guess that's what happens when you're completely obsessed with someone. They call it being blinded by love. I watched Zhou Zixuan standing by the car, constantly checking his phone. I knew exactly what was coming. He was about to make an excuse to leave. Sure enough, less than a minute later, his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, and immediately turned to me. "The ER just got a critical patient. The director needs me back right away. Xiao Yu, you were just in an accident. You really shouldn't be driving right now." Maybe he felt guilty for lying to me, or maybe my sickly pale face actually made him feel a shred of pity. Before he left, he added something that almost sounded like genuine concern. "If you need a ride anywhere, just let me know. I'll drive you." I stared at him, feeling absolutely nothing. It was almost laughable, but for some inexplicable reason, I played along. "Sure, how about 3 days from now? My company is sending me on a last-minute business trip. You can drive me to the airport." Zhou Zixuan froze mid-turn. He clearly hadn't expected me to actually take him up on the offer. He looked back, meeting my dead, empty stare. He hesitated for a second before nodding. 3 days from now? Got it." With that, he hurriedly got in his car and drove off. 3 days later, I waited. From dawn until dusk, and from dusk until the dead of night. Outside my window, the city lights flickered on. The neon signs glowed, and the bustling nightlife of the city was just beginning. But the man I was waiting for never showed up. I stood on the balcony, staring down at the empty parking spot below. I felt completely numb. I knew this was going to happen, didn't I? In a way, I think I actually wanted this to happen, just to finally kill off whatever pathetic, lingering shred of hope I had left. I pulled out my phone, logged into my burner WeChat account, and refreshed the timeline. Zhou Zixuan's profile picture was right at the top. There was no caption, just a short, few-second video. I clicked on it. The video was taken at the beach, right as night fell. Massive, brilliant fireworks exploded across the dark blue sky, lighting up the entire ocean in a dazzling display of colors. And right in the center of the frame, the bright light of the fireworks illuminated the sharp profile of a man's face. He was looking up at the sky with a massive, radiant smile. It was Sun Xiu. The video was short and ended quickly. I logged out of my alt account and switched back to my main. Opening Zhou Zixuan's moments again, it was still just a cold, blank line. I couldn't help but chuckle, the sound echoing in the empty, quiet room. It sounded incredibly desolate. So this was her so-called hospital emergency. Once again, she had unhesitatingly stood me up for Sun Xiu. Stood me up. No, it wasn't even just standing me up. She probably never even took her promise to me to heart in the first place. I found Zhou Zixuan's number and dialed it. It rang for a long time. Just when I thought it would go unanswered again, the call connected. The background noise was loud. I could faintly hear the sound of ocean waves and the popping of fireworks. "Xiao Yu." Zhou Zixuan's voice came through, carrying her usual flat tone when speaking to me, along with a barely noticeable hint of impatience. I gripped my phone, my fingertips turning cold, but I tried my best to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, it's me. Where are you?" There was a pause on the other end, followed by Zhou Zixuan's almost unthinking reply. "I'm out of town. The hospital sent me here last minute for an academic exchange conference. I left in a hurry and didn't have time to tell you. I'll be back in a couple of days." Her voice, accompanied by the clear sounds of fireworks and crashing waves on the other end, painted such an ironic picture. The last bit of warmth in my heart completely froze over. I didn't even have the desire to expose her clumsy lie anymore. "When did you leave?" I asked, my tone devoid of emotion. "The night before last. It was a last-minute notice." "Why?" she asked in return. "Nothing." I lowered my eyes. "Stay safe. Get some rest early." "Got it." The call disconnected. The busy tone echoed for a long time before I slowly lowered my arm. As expected, Sun Xiu would always be her #1 priority. I was probably just a tool Zhou Zixuan used to fill her emptiness. Fortunately, I woke up in time. I could still personally push away the person who didn't love me before I died, give her back her freedom, and let myself go too. I opened the calendar on my phone, swiping the screen and carefully counting the days until the divorce cooling-off period ended. Just 7 days left. Zhou Zixuan, in 7 days, there will be absolutely nothing between us anymore. I twitched the corners of my mouth, wanting to smile. But suddenly, I hunched over and erupted into a violent, heart-wrenching fit of coughing. I instinctively covered my mouth with my hand. I coughed until my vision went dark, my internal organs feeling like they were shifting out of place. When it finally subsided, I opened my hand. My palm was covered in a glaring, bright red. Great. My life has also entered its final countdown. Taking advantage of the few days Zhou Zixuan wasn't home, I had wanted to hurry up and completely move out the rest of my things, making a clean break. But my body was truly failing me. Just moving a little bit left me covered in a cold sweat, dizzy, blurred vision, and out of breath, left with no choice. I had to contact a moving company and ask them to come over. I had them pack up and move all my personal belongings. As for where to send these things, I hadn't figured that out yet. Was I supposed to let these old things filled with memories be buried in the dirt with me? Forget it. Either way, they couldn't stay here. I didn't want them to be an eyesore and annoy Zhou Zixuan after I died. But what I absolutely didn't expect was that right when the movers were busy working away, Zhou Zixuan actually came back. She stood at the open front door, looking at the room full of busy, unfamiliar workers. And the living room that was gradually being emptied out. She completely froze. "Xiao Yu." She walked in. Her voice was full of shock and confusion. "Who are these people? What are you doing?" I had my excuse prepared long ago and explained in a calm tone. "The renovations at the new house are almost done. The environment there is quieter and more private. I figured I'd slowly start moving some things over. You're a light sleeper, and moving makes a lot of noise. I was afraid of waking you." A flash of realization crossed Zhou Zixuan's face. She seemed to remember signing the property transfer contract at the hospital that day. She nodded, not suspecting a thing. Perhaps remembering that I had gone for a medical checkup that day, she casually asked, "Right, where's your checkup report from that day? Let me see if there are any metrics we need to keep an eye on." My heart tightened slightly, but my face remained impassive. While organizing the books on hand, I replied in a casual tone. "Moving made everything a mess. I don't know which box the report got stuffed into, but there are no major issues. Everything's fine, don't worry." Zhou Zixuan just let out an "oh." Her gaze lingered on my face for a moment. She seemed to have finally noticed my unusually pale and haggard complexion. Her lips moved, but in the end, she only said, "You don't look so good. Are you exhausted from moving these past few days? Make sure to get plenty of rest." She didn't think of anything worse. Perhaps in her mind, I was someone who could be infinitely drained. How could I possibly be associated with a terminal illness? "Got it," I replied, keeping my head down and continuing to pack. Zhou Zixuan didn't leave either. She just stood in the living room, looking a bit at a loss. She watched the workers carry away box after box, then suddenly noticed something and asked in confusion, "Why are they only moving your things? Aren't you moving mine over too?" My hands paused for a moment. Without looking up, I said, "I'm moving mine first. A lot of your things are personal items. I'm not sure what you want to take and what you want to leave behind. It's better to wait for you to decide yourself." Ever since I accidentally touched that old canvas bag of hers 2 years ago, sparking a cold war that lasted half a year, Zhou Zixuan had drawn a clear line. I was not allowed to touch her personal belongings. The air went quiet for a few seconds. Zhou Zixuan probably remembered that incident too, a trace of awkwardness flashing across her face. She didn't press the issue. Instead, she looked at the much emptier living room, sounding like she was either sighing or just making small talk. "It feels pretty weird having so many things gone all at once, but it does make the place look a lot more spacious." I gave a soft forcing the corners of my mouth up slightly, and didn't say anything else. After everything was moved out, I followed the workers downstairs and watched them load the cardboard boxes onto the truck one by one. Finally, I slipped the driver a piece of paper with my parents' address in my hometown written on it. I didn't plan on going back to my hometown to wait for death. In the final moments of my life, I just wanted to leave quietly, all by myself. But as their son, I couldn't leave the two old folks without anything to remember me by. These old things would serve as my final memento to them. Watching the moving truck drive far away, I turned around. But to my surprise, I saw Zhou Zixuan standing right at the entrance of the building, quietly watching me. "Why did you come down?" I asked. She seemed a bit dazed too. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "Nothing, just came down to take a look." "Want to take a walk together?" I was a bit surprised. Zhou Zixuan actually taking the initiative to ask me for a walk in the past 5 years. That was like the sun rising in the west. It was rare for her to be in such a good mood. Although my body was exhausted, I didn't refuse. Besides, it wasn't like we could walk for that long anyway. Sure, we walked side by side slowly along the quiet path in the neighborhood. Neither of us spoke. The atmosphere was subtly unnatural. We had only taken a few steps when, from around the corner ahead, someone suddenly walked out. It was Sun Xiu. Time seemed to freeze in that moment. The next second, Zhou Zixuan violently let go of the arm that had been brushing against mine, as if she'd been electrocuted. She subconsciously took 2 steps to the side, putting distance between us. A clear flash of panic crossed her face. She looked at me, then at Sun Xiu. Her lips moved, but she couldn't immediately make a sound. "Why are you here?" She finally looked at Sun Xiu, her voice a bit tight. Sun Xiu's gaze first lingered on me for a moment, carrying a hint of inquiry, before turning to Zhou Zixuan, his smile unchanging. "I asked around with some friends and found out you lived in this neighborhood. I've been saying I wanted to visit since graduation, but never had the chance. I happened to be passing by today, so I thought I'd drop in and give you a surprise." His words were directed at Zhou Zixuan, but his eyes kept drifting toward me, seemingly unintentionally. "Sister Zixuan, who is this?" he asked politely, looking at me. But his eyes carried a kind of scrutiny and curiosity that only men could detect between each other. He remembered me. We had met at the hospital, and also at the entrance of the restaurant. And now, here I was again, appearing in Zhou Zixuan's neighborhood and taking a walk with her. His intuition told him that my relationship with Zhou Zixuan was probably not simple. Zhou Zixuan showed a rare moment of hesitation. She looked at me, then at Sun Xiu, seemingly thinking rapidly about how to word my introduction appropriately. Before she could struggle to find an answer, I'd already taken a step forward and very naturally extended my hand to Sun Xiu. With a polite but distant smile on my face, I said, "Yang Xiaoyu, Dr. Zhou's former patient. I haven't been feeling well lately, and I'm going through a divorce, so I'm not in a great mood. I came to consult Dr. Zhou for some psychological counseling, you could say." My tone was flat, as if I were talking about some trivial matter that had nothing to do with me. Sun Xiu shook my hand, but his gaze turned back to Zhou Zixuan, as if seeking confirmation. Zhou Zixuan visibly breathed a sigh of relief and immediately played along with my words. "Right, this is Mr. Yang Xiu. This is my friend, Sun Xiu." Her introduction was a bit vague, but she clearly accepted the doctor-patient relationship I had established. "Oh, I see," Sun Xiu nodded, his smile deepening. "Mr. Yang, you do look a bit weak. Take care of yourself. Sister Zixuan's medical skills are excellent. You came to the right person." The atmosphere fell into a subtly awkward silence for a moment. Zhou Zixuan probably felt embarrassed and quickly tried to smooth things over. Xiu, you came at a good time. Let's go upstairs and sit for a bit. Mr. Yang, you come too." I originally wanted to refuse, but seeing Zhou Zixuan's slightly pleading look and the bizarre situation in front of me, I changed my mind. "Sure, I'm getting tired of walking anyway. I'll go up for a glass of water." I actually wanted to see what would happen next. Back at the house, Sun Xiu saw the traces of moving in the living room that hadn't been fully cleaned up yet and was a bit surprised. "Sister Zixuan, are you moving today?" "No." Zhou Zixuan glanced at me and explained, "It's Mr. Yang. He had some things to move and temporarily left them. Here." "I see," Sun Xiu nodded, not asking any more questions. Zhou Zixuan invited us to sit down, then turned and went to the kitchen to boil water for tea. Only Sun Xiu and I were left in the living room. The atmosphere grew quiet again. He and I really weren't familiar with each other, nor did we have any common topics to chat about. To my surprise, Sun Xiu took the initiative. He shifted his position, sitting a bit closer to me. With curiosity and an inexplicable sense of closeness on his face, he asked, "Brother Xiaoyu, I heard you say earlier that you're getting a divorce. If I may be so bold to ask, why?" "Of course, if it's not convenient to talk about, just pretend I didn't ask." I was slightly taken aback. I didn't expect him to ask such a personal question so directly, but looking into his clear eyes, I stayed silent for a few seconds, then let out a soft chuckle, my tone carrying a bit of self-deprecation. "It's nothing inconvenient. It's probably just because my wife has always had someone else in her heart." Sun Xiu clearly didn't expect this answer. A flash of embarrassment crossed his face as he whispered, "I'm sorry, Brother Xiaoyu. I shouldn't have asked." "It's fine." I shook my head, my tone flat. "It's all in the past. Now." Sun Xiu observed my expression. Seeming to feel that I didn't mind too much, he opened up. A look of mutual sympathy appeared on his face as he sighed. "Actually, to tell you the truth, Brother Xiaoyu, I also just got divorced a while ago." I was a bit surprised. Although I knew he and his wife had separated, hearing him bring it up himself felt different. "Then how did you get through it?" A look, mixing gratitude and tenderness, suddenly appeared on Sun Xiu's face, and his voice became lighter. "I was able to move on all thanks to Sister Zixuan." He fell into his memories, his eyes becoming a bit distant. "Right after the divorce, I was incredibly depressed. I felt like the sky was falling. It was Sister Zixuan. After she found out, she barged into my life without hesitation. She kept me company, talked to me, took me out to clear my head, and little by little, pulled me out of that despair. You know, Brother Xiaoyu, when I was bullied as a kid, Sister Zixuan was always the first to rush out and protect me, even if she got hurt herself. When I was sick with a fever, she was so worried she couldn't sleep all night. She'd secretly climb over the wall to my house, hold me, and coax me into taking my medicine. Maybe it's because of her that I feel being a doctor is so noble. Later, when I went to and from school, as long as she was free, she would wait for me at the intersection. She'd use her own pocket money to buy me snacks, while often going hungry herself. I remember all these things. So this time, when I got divorced, she was also the first to contact me, to comfort me, to stay by my side. If it weren't for her, I really don't know what I'd be like right now. I probably would have given up on myself long ago. Sun Siyu's tone was full of reliance and gratitude. Every word was like a delicate little hammer, gently tapping against my already riddled heart. The Zhou Zixuan he described was gentle and brave, selfless and full of strength. This completely overturned the Zhou Zixuan I knew. At this moment, an indescribable bitterness spread from the deepest part of my heart, instantly soaking into my bones. I finally clearly realized that Zhou Zixuan wasn't naturally cold. She had just given all her gentleness and bravery to the person in front of me. Zhou Zixuan didn't necessarily have to hide our marriage either. She just wanted to forever save the most important place in her heart for Sun Siyu. And now that Sun Siyu was single again, there were no longer any obstacles between them. She could finally get what she wanted. Figuring all this out, I suddenly found it a bit funny. Funny, firstly, because I was finally completely free, and secondly, because I felt that my past self was truly ridiculous to the extreme. It was clearly someone who never had me in her heart, yet like an idiot. I sank into it for so many years, pouring my heart and soul out. I even almost cost myself my life. Was it worth it? Yang Xiaoyu, you really fucking deserved it. Seeing the dead silent expression on my face, Sun Siyu probably thought I was touched by his story. Feeling a sense of resonance, the way he looked at me gained a bit more of a kindred spirit's approval. After hesitating again and again, Sun Siyu lowered his voice and asked me a question he had kept buried in his heart. Brother Xiaoyu, I feel like you can understand me, so I want to ask you, do you think Sister Zixuan and I have a chance? Could we be together? This question was like an icy arrow, accurately piercing through my last bit of crumbling defenses. I looked at Sun Siyu's eyes, filled with expectation and apprehension. My heart was a jumble of emotions, and the sense of absurdity almost reached its peak. I looked at the slightly empty living room. It used to be filled with furniture and decorations I had carefully selected. Now, all that was left was a blank space waiting to be filled by someone else. I took a deep breath and, with an almost cruel calmness, answered him seriously. I actually don't know Dr. Zhou that well, but hearing you say this today, I think she is indeed someone worth cherishing. If you already have the answer in your heart, if you both have feelings for each other, I paused for a moment, ignoring the sharp, piercing pain coming from my heart. Then I support you in doing what you want to do. Sun Siyu's eyes instantly lit up. The look he gave me was full of gratitude and relief. Thank you, Brother Xiaoyu. Really, thank you for understanding. At this moment, Zhou Zixuan came out carrying the brewed tea, pouring tea, drinking tea. The atmosphere fell into a subtly awkward silence. Everyone seemed preoccupied with their own thoughts, only able to find harmless topics to chat about. We chatted until the sky gradually darkened. Sun Siyu enthusiastically invited me, Brother Xiaoyu, let's grab dinner together. My treat, as a thank you for enlightening me today. Before I could speak, Zhou Zixuan, who was changing her shoes at the door, imperceptibly paused. She turned her head and glanced at me, her eyes complex, looking like she wanted to say something but stopped. I immediately understood her reluctance. Of course, why would she want me, her ex-husband? Third wheeling a dinner between her and her beloved little brother? I smiled faintly and stood up. I think I'll pass. I've had a lot going on lately, and I'm a bit tired. I want to head back early and rest. You guys go ahead, have fun. Sun Siyu still wanted to insist, but Zhou Zixuan beat him to it, shoving the car keys into his hand and almost half pushing him out the door. Siyu, go wait for me in the car first. I still have a few things regarding his condition to instruct Mr. Yang about. Her tone brooked no argument. The door closed, and instantly, only Zhou Zixuan and I were left in the room. It was too quiet. So quiet that I could clearly hear my own slow, heavy heartbeat, and also hear her somewhat erratic breathing. Facing me, that helpless panic surfaced on Zhou Zixuan's face again. She opened her mouth, seeming to want to organize her words, perhaps to explain everything that just happened and her relationship with Sun Siyu. You really don't have to put yourself in a tough spot, I spoke first, my voice so calm there wasn't a single ripple. We had an agreement before we got married. A hidden marriage. Since I agreed, I will abide by it. I won't let your friends know about our relationship. I sounded like I was stating a fact that had nothing to do with me. Zhou Zixuan froze for a moment, seemingly not expecting me to say that. The tension on her face faded a bit, replaced by a complex emotion, mixing gratitude and perhaps a trace of guilt. Xiaoyu, thank you, she said softly, her fingers unconsciously twisting the hem of her shirt. Give me a little more time. I'm actually slowly getting used to the identity of being married. When the time is right, I will definitely tell everyone that you are my husband. She made another round of promises to me. Her tone sounded very sincere, but my heart had long since turned ice cold. After she left, I couldn't hold on any longer. I violently rushed to the coffee table, pulled out a few tissues, and covered my mouth. After a fit of heart-wrenching coughing, I opened my hand, In the center of the snow-white tissue was a glaring bloodstain. Zhou Zixuan. Oh, Zhou Zixuan. Actually, I don't care at all whether you want to make our relationship public. 5 years of marriage. I've already exhausted all my spirit and hope. Now, my days are numbered. I no longer have the future you speak of. For these last few days, I just want to truly live for myself for once. I had just cleaned up the traces of coughing up blood when my phone rang. It was a WeChat message. It was from Professor Chen, the mentor I was closest to during my university days. Xiao Yu. October 13th is the school's 80th anniversary alumni gathering. The old colleagues in the department all miss you very much. It's been a long time. If it's convenient, come back and visit. Looking at this message, a complex wave of warmth and sorrow welled up in my heart. Back then, when I was bitterly pursuing Zhou Zixuan to no avail, falling into self-doubt and pain countless times, it was Professor Chen who guided and encouraged me time and time again, pulling me out of the emotional mire. After graduation, I was busy with life, and my contact with the professor gradually lessened. It lessened so much that I was about to leave this world and almost forgot about this benefactor. I hardly hesitated and replied immediately, "Of course I'm free, Professor Chen. I'll definitely be there on time." I chatted briefly with the professor about how things were going before ending the conversation. My severely ill body was like a machine out of fuel. Just standing there, talking for a bit and handling a few small things left me utterly exhausted. I washed up early and lay down in bed. Only tonight, Zhou Zixuan actually came back, and quite early at that. She was even carrying a takeout late-night snack in her hand. The sound of the door opening woke me up. I looked at the takeout box in her hand. No need to guess, it was probably that spicy food I couldn't stomach again. Seeing that I was already in bed, Zhou Zixuan was a bit surprised. "Sorry, I didn't know you went to sleep so early. Did I wake you?" "It's fine." I shook my head, my voice carrying the hoarseness of just waking up. I got up to use the bathroom. When I came back, Zhou Zixuan was leaning against the headboard, playing on her phone. She suddenly looked up at me, as if having made some sort of decision, and spoke. "Xiao Yu, haven't you always said you wanted to take a trip to the beach? Next month, I'll take some time off and go with you." A sudden invitation. Was this supposed to be compensation for me? But I didn't care anymore. There were only a few days left in the divorce cooling-off period. I didn't want to complicate things, nor did I want to have any more ties with her. So I calmly shook my head. No need. Things are busy at the company lately. I can't get away. Zhou Zixuan looked at me in surprise, her eyes full of confusion. After all, ever since we met, I had always been the one taking the initiative to plan itineraries and invite her, while she mostly refused or brushed me off. It was rare for her to take the initiative to suggest something, yet my reaction was so flat. She thought about it, probably assuming I was still brooding over the Sun Siu incident, and the guilt in her heart deepened a bit. For once, she didn't give up. She stayed by my side, proposing one compensation plan after another. Going to see a newly released movie, checking out a newly opened trendy restaurant, or even going to a concert. They were all rejected by me one by one. I didn't want her to notice the abnormalities in my body or my resolute intention to leave. Finally, before she could open her mouth again, I took the initiative to make a request. October 13th is the school's alumni gathering. Professor Chen asked me to go back and visit. "Do you want to come along?" My tone was very light. It didn't sound like an invitation, more like a notification. Hearing this, Zhou Zixuan visibly breathed a sigh of relief. As if finally finding a chance to make amends, she immediately agreed. "No problem. I'll switch my shift that day, and we'll go together." Having made a promise with me, the guilt on Zhou Zixuan's face lessened a lot. Not long after lying down, her breathing became even and long. But I lay with my back to her, my eyes open in the dark, staring at the blurry outline on the opposite wall. The electronic calendar on the wall emitted a faint glow. Time was silently counting down. The 13th was the alumni gathering. The 14th was the day our divorce cooling-off period officially ended. This alumni gathering would probably be the last time Zhou Zixuan and I saw each other in this life. Perhaps because I was finally going to be completely free, my heart actually felt a bit lighter. I even reminded her in a long-lost, somewhat joking tone, "I've made plans with Professor Chen. Don't stand me up again." Zhou Zixuan didn't turn around. Her voice, heavy with sleep, mumbled in agreement. "Don't worry, I won't this time. Go to sleep. It's getting late." The room returned to silence. I smiled softly, didn't say anything else, and closed my eyes. For the next few days, Zhou Zixuan didn't come back again. She was probably busy with hospital matters again, or keeping Sun Siu company to help him step out of the shadow of his divorce. I also seized the final moments to pack up the rest of my personal belongings and mail them back to my parents' house. Until the day of the alumni gathering, I specifically dug out a set of casual clothes I used to wear all the time in college. Although it hung a bit loose on me now, the style was still barely passable. I also combed my hair to look as neat and fresh as it did back then, and brought along that old camera I'd used for many years. I was ready to formally bid farewell to my hopeless love. Just as I was about to leave, the sound of a key turning rang out. Zhou Zixuan pushed the door open and walked in. I was very surprised. This time, she actually showed up as promised. We went downstairs together, and she drove. Along the way, the car window was half open. The slightly cool breeze of early autumn brushed past my cheeks. It had been a long time since I felt like this, thinking about nothing, just quietly enjoying the breeze. My mood was surprisingly good. Zhou Zixuan seemed to be infected by this relaxed atmosphere too. With a rare smile in her eyes, she even took the initiative to chat with me about some funny stories from college. The atmosphere was unusually harmonious. It was as if a third person had never appeared between us. Soon, the car parked at the entrance of our alma mater. The familiar sycamore trees and red brick buildings instantly pulled my memories back to many years ago. Zhou Zixuan unbuckled her seatbelt, her tone light. Let's go. We'll stroll around the campus first, reminisce about our youth, and then grab dinner with Professor Chen and the others tonight. Just as I was about to push the car door open, the screen of Zhou Zixuan's phone on the center console suddenly lit up. Immediately after, the familiar ringtone pierced through the harmonious atmosphere inside the car. She looked down at the caller ID. It was Sun Siyu. Her fingers paused, a flash of hesitation crossing her face. But it was only for a split second before she answered the call. I sat in the passenger seat. The door wasn't open yet, and the cabin was enclosed and quiet. From the other end of the line, Sun Siyu's tearful voice faintly drifted over. Sister Zixuan, I took a fall at home. I think I sprained my ankle. It's swollen so big, I can't move it. It hurts so much. Can you come over and check on me? Zhou Zixuan's expression changed instantly. She leaned forward, her voice filled with undisguised concern and anxiety. Is it serious? Don't move, I'll be right there. Hanging up the phone. She turned to look at me, her face written all over with apology and dilemma. I'm sorry, Xiao Yu. She spoke very fast. Siyu sprained his ankle, it's pretty bad. He's home alone, I'm worried about him. I have to go over there. You walk around by yourself today. I'll try my best to rush back before dinner, okay? I looked at her anxious appearance, my heart completely calm. I couldn't even be bothered to feel disappointed anymore. From the moment I heard Sun Siyu's voice, I knew I was being abandoned by Zhou Zixuan once again. All right, go ahead, I nodded. I pushed the door open and got out of the car, my movements crisp and clean. Zhou Zixuan didn't even say an extra I'm sorry. The car quickly turned around, merged into the traffic, and disappeared from my sight. I walked slowly by myself along the familiar tree-lined paths of the campus. Without realizing it, I walked through every place where I used to chase after Zhou Zixuan back in the day. The corner of the library she frequented, the lawn bench she liked to sit on, the sycamore avenue she had to pass by after class, the back door of the gymnasium where I first mustered the courage to stop her and ask for her contact info, only to be brutally rejected. I took pictures of all these places with my camera to keep as mementos. Then, I went to the staff dormitories to visit Professor Chen. We chatted for a long time and had a great time. The professor was still as talkative and caring towards his students as ever. Only, halfway through the chat, Professor Chen pushed up his glasses, looked at me carefully, and frowned slightly. Xiao Yu, why do you look so pale? Are you working too hard? Health is the capital of revolution. You can't just tough it out. My heart warmed, yet felt a bit sour. Even a teacher I hadn't seen in years could tell at a glance that I was in terrible shape. But that doctor wife of mine, Zhou Zixuan, when will you ever truly look at me? After having dinner with the professor, I took a taxi home alone. On the way, my phone vibrated. I logged into that alt account and refreshed. Moments. Sure enough, Zhou Zixuan had posted an update. There was no caption, just a short video. I clicked it open. The video showed the living room of Sun Siyu's house. His ankle was indeed swollen. It was covered with an ice pack. Zhou Zixuan's slender hands were holding a tube of ointment, carefully applying it for him. The camera panned and pointed at herself. She made a shh gesture at the camera. Then the text overlay read, asking the almighty moments for help. Besides ice packs and ointment, are there any other good ways to relieve pain and speed up the swelling going down for a sprained ankle? Waiting online. It's pretty urgent. Poor thing. At the end of the text were 2 heartbroken emojis. At this moment, I thought of those words Zhou Zixuan had said a few days ago, offering to make it up to me, those cautious probes. I couldn't help but chuckle softly. What was the point? Zhou Zixuan, in your heart. I have never won against Sun Siyu, not even once. I will always be the option placed at the very bottom. But if you knew that our marriage was about to completely end, that my life was also coming to an end, would you feel even the slightest bit of regret? This question was destined to never get an answer from Zhou Zixuan, and I had long stopped caring about the answer anyway. As the car passed by the law firm, I asked the driver to wait a moment. I specifically went down and pushed open the door to Lawyer Zhang's office. He was organizing files. Seeing me, he was a bit surprised. He quickly stood up. Mr. Yang, what brings you here? Is your health all right? I'm fine. I sat down across from him and got straight to the point. Lawyer Zhang, today is the last day of the divorce cooling-off period for Zhou Zixuan and me. I want to confirm, after midnight tonight, does everything automatically take effect? Do she or I need to do anything else? Lawyer Zhang looked up, his eyes behind his glasses, carefully studying me. He seemed shocked by my emaciated and haggard appearance now. It took him a few seconds to reply. Yes, Mr. Yang. According to regulations, once the 30-day cooling-off period expires, if neither of you has withdrawn the divorce application from the marriage registration office, then starting tomorrow, your marriage will be automatically dissolved. He paused, his tone becoming solemn and gentle. Congratulations on taking a new step forward. I hope everything goes well for you in the future. All the best. For a terminally ill patient whose life had entered its countdown, this was probably the simplest yet most extravagant blessing. I thanked him solemnly and left the law firm. Sitting back in the car, finally, the long and exhausting story between Zhou Zixuan and me was about to come to an end. This chapter that had consumed the most blood, sweat, and tears in my life. Although the ending was messy, at least it was over. Zhou Zixuan didn't come back until the afternoon of the next day, nor was there any news from her. I didn't care. I transferred all the photos I took at the school yesterday and took them to the photo studio downstairs to be developed. After getting the photos back, I sat at the desk and picked up a pen. On the back of each photo, I wrote a short sentence. Every photo was a key that opened the floodgates of memory. Those details I thought had long blurred were actually clearly carved into my bones. Looking at them, I even somewhat admired my past self. Finally, at the moment the divorce cooling-off period ended, I suddenly experienced the most severe bout of coughing up blood since I got sick. Leaning over the sink, I threw up until the world spun and my vision went dark in waves, as if I wouldn't stop until I coughed up all my internal organs. My body was in extreme agony, but my soul felt like it was slowly detaching, bringing a bizarre sense of relief. After throwing up, I didn't even have the strength to clean the sink. I could only turn on the faucet and let the cold water wash away that glaring bright red. Supporting myself against the wall, I slowly shuffled back to the living room, picked up the camera, and switched it to video mode. I wanted to leave Zhou Zixuan one last message, facing the cold lens. I tried to speak several times, but was interrupted by violent coughing. Coughing until my heart tore and my lungs split, coughing until my face was covered in physiological tears. My face probably looked as ugly as a ghost's, but I still persevered. Intermittently, I finished saying what I wanted to say. Zhou Zixuan, as you can see, I'm dying. I once counted on my fingers. Liking you has actually taken up nearly half of my life. Thinking about it, it's really unbelievable. I actually did so many stupid things just based on this little bit of affection. I gave it my all. I really tried, I truly did. But I'm sorry, I still couldn't make my way into your heart. So, I give up. In the little time I have left, I'm giving you back your freedom. I'm stepping aside for you and Sun Siyu. Don't come looking for me. For these last few days, I want to be alone. Finally, Zhou Zixuan, happy divorce. I hope you get what you wish for. At the end of the video, I pulled a face at the camera that might have been a smile. Then I pressed the stop button. The time pointed exactly to midnight. I dug out the divorce agreement, placed it together with the developed photos, and used the camera to weigh them down. Like completing a solemn ceremony, I looked around this house I had lived in for 5 years. I softly said, "Goodbye, Zhou Zixuan. Goodbye, Yang Xiaoyu." Then I opened the door and left without looking back. I booked a flight back to the provincial capital of my hometown. At the end of my life, I wanted to see my parents one more time, stay by their side for a few days, and then set off alone to finish my incomplete journey. In the taxi to the airport, I took out my phone and blocked all of Zhou Zixuan's contact methods. Then I called my parents. "Mom, Dad, it's me. I'm going on a long business trip soon. It might be hard to reach me. Zixuan lost her phone, so you won't be able to contact her for a while. If you need anything, just call this new number of mine. Oh right, she probably won't be using her old WeChat account anymore, so you guys should delete it too, so you don't bother her." I wove a lie full of holes in a calm tone. My parents on the other end of the line seemed a bit confused, but ultimately chose to believe their son. Let it be like this, cutting off all clues that could lead to me being found, letting me leave quietly. On the other side, Zhou Zixuan took care of Sun Siyu at his house all night until dawn. The swelling and pain in his ankle eased slightly, and he fell into a deep sleep. Only then did she drag her exhausted body away. Looking at the time, it was already almost noon. Only then did she suddenly remember that she had stood me up again yesterday. On the way home, she called me, wanting to apologize, wanting to explain, wanting to ask how the alumni gathering went yesterday. "The number you have dialed is temporarily unanswered. Please try again later." She called over 20 times in a row, all met with the same cold, automated voice. Zhou Zixuan's fingers gripping the steering wheel tightened slightly. A sudden, inexplicable sense of unease rose in her heart. In their 5 years of marriage, this was the first time she completely couldn't reach me. She turned to send me a WeChat message, only to find a glaring red exclamation mark appearing next to the message. Zhou Zixuan simply couldn't believe her eyes. She slammed on the brakes and pulled the car over to the side of the road. She confirmed it over and over again. Yes. The calls wouldn't go through, and she was blocked on WeChat. Connecting this to all my abnormal behavior lately, suddenly getting rid of our couple items, moving out early, my pale and haggard face, and the divorce cooling-off period I mentioned at the repair shop that day. A terrifying thought, like an icy poisonous snake, violently slithered up her spine. She suddenly panicked. It felt like something important was completely spiraling out of control. She slammed on the gas pedal, the car practically flying as it rushed back home. Pushing open the front door, she froze. All of her things in the living room were left exactly as they were, but every single trace of me was gone, wiped so clean it was as if I had never lived here. Zhou Zixuan's heart pounded wildly, almost bursting out of her chest. She rushed into the bedroom and threw open the wardrobe. My half was completely empty. The study, the balcony, the bathroom, she couldn't find a single shred of evidence that I had ever existed here. He really moved out. He took everything with him. No, wait, there's the new house. Like grasping at a final lifeline, Zhou Zixuan rushed nonstop to the new apartment and unlocked the door. It was completely empty inside. There wasn't even basic furniture, just cold walls and bare floors. Bathed in the pale light filtering through the window, there was absolutely no sign that anyone had ever moved in. The property transfer, the moving, it was all a lie. Zhou Zixuan panicked so hard she could barely breathe. Her mind went completely blank as a massive wave of terror gripped her. She didn't even know how she made it back to the old house. Driven purely by instinct, she searched room by room, desperately hoping that I was just hiding somewhere, or that I had left some kind of clue behind. Until she walked back into the master bedroom and her eyes fell on the nightstand. Sitting quietly on top was a stack of photos, a camera, and a document. Seeing that familiar old camera, Zhou Zixuan's taut nerves miraculously relaxed a fraction. Thank God. This camera was his most prized possession. He always said it was the starting point of his passion for photography, a gift from his mother. The camera is still here. He couldn't have gone far, right? Maybe he just went out for a walk to clear his head. Like a drowning woman clinging to driftwood, she quickly walked over. She didn't even bother looking at the document, picking up the stack of photos first. They were taken at the university yesterday. She flipped through them one by one. They were all places I had walked through alone yesterday. Looking at these familiar scenes, a complex wave of emotion welled up in her heart, a mix of guilt and a faint sense of nostalgia. Soon, she noticed the writing on the back of the photos. She froze. Line by line, sentence by sentence. It was all about how clumsily I had loved her back then, how she had rejected me, and how I had secretly broken my own heart. Zhou Zixuan had never imagined that, behind her back, I had done so many foolish things and shed so many tears for her. Seeing those faded memories resurface in this way, a hard place in her heart suddenly softened. Her eyes involuntarily grew red. She remembered the college version of me, the one who always followed silently behind her, eyes lighting up whenever I looked at her. The corners of her mouth even unconsciously curled into a fond, wistful smile. Idiot, she whispered softly. Setting the photos down, filled with a complex mix of guilt and anticipation, she picked up the camera. She wanted to see if there were any more photos of her inside, or something else. She pressed the power button, and the camera screen lit up. The last video file was displayed as unnamed, recorded late last night. Her heart suddenly skipped a beat. With trembling fingers, she tapped play. What appeared on the screen was my face, looking sickeningly pale and frail. The moment Zhou Zixuan saw my face clearly, her heart spasmed with pain. As a doctor, she knew all too well what that kind of complexion meant. Since when? When did you get sick? She blurted out, her voice trembling uncontrollably. The me in the video obviously couldn't hear her shock. Facing the lens, I began to speak in a broken, halting voice. Zhou Zixuan, as you can see, I have a terminal illness. My life has already entered its countdown. I used to count on my fingers, over and over again. Did you know? Without me even realizing it, my love for you has actually taken up more than half my life. What kind of feeling is that? Looking back on it now, I still think it's beautiful. Just relying on my love for you. How many times did I throw caution to the wind and give it my absolute all? I tried so hard, but I still couldn't find a way into your heart. So, in the end, I choose to let go. In the little time I have left, I'm giving you back your freedom. I'm stepping aside so you can be with Sun Siyu. Lastly, I want to tell you don't come looking for me. For these final few days, I just want to live for myself. The me in the video coughed incessantly, vomiting blood, curling up in agony. Yet I still forced myself to say, Zhou Zixuan, happy divorce. A month ago, I signed the divorce agreement. You signed it, too. Today is the last day of our divorce cooling off period. Now, our marriage is officially over. I hope you and Sun Siyu finally end up together. Maybe you don't care about me at all, but I still have to say it. Do not come looking for me. I only have a few days left to live. In my final days, I don't want to see you. Every single word was crystal clear. Like 10,000 red-hot steel needles, they ruthlessly pierced right through Zhou Zixuan's heart. The pain instantly drained all her strength, her breathing stopped, and her mind went completely blank. The divorce agreement? She signed it? When? When did I ever sign that? Zhou Zixuan's eyes widened, her face as pale as a sheet of paper. She was so devastated by this sudden truth that her soul nearly shattered. Impossible. How could she have signed a divorce agreement? She didn't even know I wanted a divorce. The massive shock and panic made her hands tremble. Smash. The camera dropped to the floor, its screen instantly shattering. The sharp noise snapped the dazed Zhou Zixuan back to reality. Her gaze finally shifted mechanically to the document on the nightstand that she had ignored. The dim craft paper envelope looked somewhat familiar. Trembling, she reached out, picked it up, and opened it. Right there on the first page were 4 bold, black words, divorce agreement. And on the signature line of the last page, right next to the 3 familiar characters of Yang Xiaoyu's name, was her very own handwritten signature. When the hell did this happen? Zhou Zixuan was completely dumbfounded. Her voice broke into pieces. Her heart felt like it had been instantly hollowed out, leaving nothing but a gaping, wind-swept black hole. The first day the divorce cooling-off period took effect wasn't that the day she invited Sun Siyu to the movies. That day, she had indeed run into me at the hospital, and I had indeed handed her a contract to sign. I told her it was for a property transfer. Scene after scene of ignored details rushed back into her mind like a maddening tide. I had her sign it at the hospital, but deliberately only flipped to the last page. Director Liu had asked her to go downstairs to deliver a terminal illness, medical record, and a property waiver to a patient, and the person who came to pick it up was me. And over these past 30 days, my face had grown increasingly pale and weak, yet I always brushed it off, saying I was doing fine. All the scattered fragments were cruelly strung together in this moment by two threads: terminal illness and divorce. They pieced together a truth she simply could not bear. I should have noticed earlier. Zhou Zixuan's body went limp. She collapsed onto the cold floor, tears bursting forth like a broken dam. Her heart felt like it was being viciously torn apart by an invisible hand. It hurt so much she could barely breathe. She finally understood everything. For this entire month, I had known I was going to die. I had carefully woven a lie about a property transfer to trick her into signing the divorce agreement. And then, I used my final days to erase every trace of myself, quietly and completely vanishing from her world. Yang Xiaoyu, what gave you the right? Why didn't you tell me? How could you do this to me? Zhou Zixuan broke down, sobbing. Every emotion in her heart exploded all at once, threatening to swallow her whole. But soon, her remaining rationality and her instincts as a doctor forced her to pull herself together. She couldn't collapse now. Yang Xiaoyu was sick. He was severely ill. Where could he possibly go all by himself? She scrambled up from the floor, not even bothering to wipe her tears. Grabbing her car keys, she dashed out of the house and sped all the way straight to the hospital. Director Liu. Yang Xiaoyu went to see a doctor that day. Director Liu must know about his condition. He must know what's going on. Zhou Zixuan recklessly charged into Director Liu's office. The door slammed against the wall with a massive bang. There were other doctors in the office discussing pathology. They were startled by her bloodshot eyes and frantic appearance. Director Liu looked up, saw it was her, and frowned. Xiao Zhou, what is the meaning of this? Director Liu. Zhou Zixuan rushed to his desk, leaning heavily on the edge with both hands. Her body was still shaking uncontrollably, her voice hoarse and broken. Yang Xiaoyu's illness, did you know about it all along? His terminal illness, why didn't you tell me? Yang Xiaoyu? Director Liu froze for a second before realizing who she meant. You mean Mr. Yang? Yes, he is indeed my patient. I remember him very well. He always came in for his appointments alone. His condition isn't looking good. Why? Do you know him? Zhou Zixuan's emotions completely shattered. She screamed. Why did even you hide it from me? Why was he so sick, and not a single one of you told me? I am his wife. She practically shrieked the last sentence, sounding as if she were coughing up blood. His wife? Director Liu's eyes widened in sheer shock. The pen in his hand clattered onto the desk. He stood up abruptly, his face written with absolute disbelief. Xiao Zhou, what did you just say? Yang Xiaoyu is your husband. Aren't you unmarried? Isn't your boyfriend that young man who came to our department dinner the other day? At that moment, Zhou Zixuan felt as if she had been struck by lightning, because for the 5 years they had been married, she had always maintained the persona of a single woman at the hospital, in front of all her colleagues and friends. She had never made her marital status public. She herself had almost forgotten the fact that I was her husband. Realizing this cruel and ironic reason, Zhou Zixuan felt as if all the bones had been pulled from her body. She stumbled back 2 steps, grabbing onto a nearby chair just to keep from falling. Her anger was instantly replaced by a much deeper despair and remorse. Yes, he is my husband. We've been married for 5 years. She lowered her head, massive tears smashing against the floor. Her voice was so low, it was barely audible. I'm sorry, Director Liu. I was too emotional just now. Looking at her state, and combining her words with some rumors he had vaguely heard before, Director Liu pretty much figured out the gist of it. He sighed heavily and waved his hand. He signaled for the other doctors to leave first. Once it was just the 2 of them left in the office, Director Liu finally spoke, his tone complicated. Xiao Zhou, don't panic. Calm down first. Yang Xiaoyu's physical condition is indeed very pessimistic. He's highly resistant to active treatment, and his mood is extremely depressed. Furthermore, he mentioned to me that he was going through a divorce with his wife. Director Liu paused. Looking at Zhou Zixuan's deathly pale face, he swallowed back the words that had reached the tip of his tongue. In the end, he only said, is there some kind of misunderstanding between you two? In his current state, he can't be left alone. Misunderstanding? Heh. Zhou Zixuan let out a miserable laugh, shaking her head as her tears flowed even harder. No, there's no misunderstanding. It's me. I'm the one who lost him, and now I can't find him. He blocked all my contact info. He's gone. Director Liu thought of Sun Xiu, who had acted so intimately with Zhou Zixuan at the department dinner. Then he thought of the dull, lifeless look in Yang Xiaoyu's eyes every time he came to the hospital, a look that said he didn't care about anything anymore. A tragic story began to take shape in his mind. He couldn't bring himself to say much more, only offering comfort. Don't panic just yet. Think carefully. You're the person closest to him. There has to be a way to contact him. With his illness, maybe he'd want to spend his final days by his family's side. Family. Zhou Zixuan's head snapped up, as if she had caught on to something. Most terminal patients in their final stages choose to return to their parents. But the very second this thought arose, an even deeper sense of agony and powerlessness completely drowned her, because she tragically realized that, after 5 years of marriage, she didn't have the contact info for a single one of my friends. She didn't even know the exact address of my hometown. She had never once cared enough to learn my parents' names or phone numbers, let alone memorize them. What a ridiculous, absolute failure of a wife she was. On her own, she had absolutely no way of finding me. In her despair, Zhou Zixuan could only beg Director Liu again, desperate to grasp this final straw. Director Liu, please, I'm begging you, help me. You're his attending physician, you must have his contact information, right? Please tell me, I need to go find him, I have to find him. Looking at Zhou Zixuan's pathetic, pleading state, Director Liu couldn't bear it, but he still firmly shook his head. Xiao Zhou, it's not that I don't want to help you. This is patient privacy. The hospital has strict regulations. I cannot leak a patient's contact information. It's against the rules, and it goes against professional ethics. Of course, Zhou Zixuan understood the hospital's rules, but she was completely out of options now. With a heavy thud, she actually dropped straight to her knees in front of Director Liu. Director Liu, I am begging you. I know the rules, but I really have no other way. He's so sick, he's out there all alone. What if something happens to him? I'm begging you, help me. Even if you just pass a message to him, tell him I'm looking for him. Please. Director Liu was startled by her actions and hurriedly helped her up. Seeing Zhou Zixuan's complete breakdown, and thinking of my precarious physical condition, as a doctor and an elder, his heart finally softened. Get up first. Director Liu let out a heavy sigh. Rules aren't always set in stone. How about this? I can try to contact him for you and pass on your message. But whether he's willing to reply, or whether he'll contact you, I can't guarantee that. To Zhou Zixuan, this sounded like a choir of angels. She instantly stopped crying, a spark of hope bursting in her eyes as she nodded repeatedly. Okay, thank you, Director Liu, thank you. She immediately pulled out her phone and carefully drafted a long message, sending it to Director Liu. It was filled with her apologies, her remorse, her explanations, and her desperate pleas, begging me to tell her where I was, begging me to let her come back to my side. Director Liu forwarded the message to me right in front of her, and then began the long, agonizing wait. Zhou Zixuan returned home, staring unblinkingly at her phone, refreshing it every few seconds, hoping for news from Director Liu, or a reply from me. She waited all the way until nightfall. Finally, her phone buzzed. It was Director Liu. Zhou Zixuan's heart raced. With trembling fingers, she tapped open the message. There was no text, just a screenshot. The screenshot showed the chat window between Director Liu and me. Director Liu had sent that massive block of text. My reply consisted of only 2 short lines. Too long, didn't read. Ex-wife, do not disturb. Those simple words were like ice daggers. They instantly shredded the newly sprouted hope in Zhou Zixuan's heart to pieces. She felt like she had been thrown into an ice cavern, freezing from the top of her head down to the soles of her feet. Even her breaths felt like shards of ice. Zhou Zixuan slumped onto the sofa. It took a long time before she seemed to regain a tiny bit of strength. Unwilling to give up, her trembling fingers drafted another message in the chat with Director Liu. Another massive essay. But as she typed, she ended up deleting it all. As if venting her frustration, she tossed her phone aside and curled up on the sofa, losing all sense of direction and energy. But soon, she abruptly sat up and rushed into the bedroom, finding the camera with the shattered screen that I had left behind. Thankfully, the memory card still worked. She transferred the video to her computer and played it over and over again, watching me vomit blood, cough, and suffer in unbearable agony. Her heart ached beyond measure. Her fingers unconsciously traced the cold monitor, as if trying to reach through the screen to stroke my face and wipe away the bloodstains. But all her fingertips felt was the hard, icy glass of the display. She pulled her hand back. Watching it repeatedly in silence, she finally heard the line in the video, where I said, "I'm stepping aside so you can be with Sun Siyu." Zhou Zixuan nervously held her breath, an indescribable panic washing over her. But when exactly did he find out? I always thought I had hidden it so well. At least in front of Yang Xiaoyu, I tried my best to keep my distance. She frantically searched her memories, the images finally freezing on that specific day. The day she and I went downstairs for a walk and bumped into Sun Sai. That day, she went to the kitchen to make tea, and Sun Siyu and I were left alone for a few minutes. Could it be that Sun Siyu said something to him that day? But that day was already near the end of the divorce cooling-off period. Even if he found out something, he couldn't have prepared the divorce agreement so far in advance and predicted everything. Zhou Zixuan desperately pushed her memories further back to over a month ago. That day, I was at the hospital for a checkup and ran into her, and she signed that real estate contract. But I had already prepared the divorce agreement that day. This meant my resolve to leave her had been set even earlier. When exactly was it? Zhou Zixuan recalled the days she spent with me day by day. Most of the time, it was as plain as water, nothing special, with only one exception. That was probably about a month before I tricked her into signing. That day, she was feeling down because Sun Siyu had just gotten divorced, so she asked him out for drinks. Both of them got dead drunk. In the end, she barely managed to take Sun Siyu home before stumbling back herself. That night, did I say something I shouldn't have to him while I was drunk? Did I spill my feelings about Sun Siyu? Thinking up to this point, Zhou Zixuan's heart skipped several beats, and her face instantly turned as pale as paper. That night, she stayed awake until dawn, replaying the events of the past few years in her mind like a movie. For the first 20-something years of her life, her world truly only revolved around Sun Siyu. She had really, truly liked him, so much so that, just because he once said he wanted to be a doctor, she studied desperately and got into medical school. But later, Sun Siyu got married, and the bride wasn't her. It took her a very long time to barely accept this reality. She forced herself to bury those feelings deep in her heart, treating him only as a younger brother and a childhood friend from then on. Later, she met me. We were married for 5 years. In her heart, Sun Siyu's shadow had actually gradually faded. But I hadn't truly walked into it either. Having known me for so many years, she always had complex feelings for me, but the only thing missing was that heart-fluttering romantic love. She thought a marriage could survive without love, maintained solely by responsibility and habit. Part of the reason she chose me was indeed out of a sense of compensation. To compensate for her past self, who also loved but couldn't attain it. She wanted to give me a happy ending where I got what I wanted, as if that could heal her own past regrets. But she was too naive. Getting something you don't truly want is sometimes even more despairing and painful than loving without getting. And this kind of marriage, based on compensation, was destined to hurt both of us from the very beginning. After getting married, facing my passionate love, and facing the emptiness and guilt in her own heart for being unable to reciprocate, Zhou Zixuan felt unprecedented pressure and suffocation. She subconsciously wanted to escape, so she proposed a hidden marriage. It was as if as long as the marriage wasn't made public, it hadn't truly begun, and she could still retain a trace of herself and leave a way out. I agreed, and I agreed very readily. And so, with a mindset of evasion and wishful thinking, Zhou Zixuan ignorantly and selfishly stepped into the fortress of marriage. In fact, during our 5 years of marriage, she never actively contacted Sun Siyu. All their interactions stemmed from their mutual circle of friends, from various gatherings they couldn't decline. Every time she saw Sun Siyu and felt conflicted, she would write down something like a diary entry, but she never intended to show them to anyone. It was more like a way to channel her own emotions, a farewell ritual to the past, and a reminder for the present. A reminder that there was someone beside her worth cherishing. But letting go is never a simple thing. Childhood friends for over a decade, some care and concern, had long become an instinct carved into her bones. Her gaze would unconsciously follow his silhouette, and her tone would unconsciously soften when speaking to him. Even knowing it was impossible, she genuinely hoped he could live happily. So when Sun Siyu hit rock bottom, she couldn't help but care for him and accompany him, hoping he would pull himself together as soon as possible. She attributed all of this to her responsibility as a friend and an older sister. These thoughts and entanglements hidden deep in her heart, she never revealed to anyone. She thought she had hidden them flawlessly, but she forgot that she had me by her side. Someone who treated her as his whole world, constantly watching her, sensitive to her slightest emotional changes. So her secrets had long been seen through. In my eyes, those actions she thought were innocent became sharp blades that hurt me, pushing me into the abyss of despair time and time again, until this sudden, cliff-like divorce descended, until she saw that signed agreement and the terminal illness medical records. Only then did Zhou Zixuan belatedly realize that she had been exposed long ago. But what she couldn't accept at this moment wasn't just that I tricked her into signing, but also my absolute concealment from her. Being so severely ill, yet refusing to tell her a single word even at the end of my life. And the massive lie I told, using the excuse of transferring property to trick her into signing the divorce agreement. And my ruthless decisiveness, leaving without saying goodbye, blocking her on everything, not even leaving her a chance to ask me to stay. But what made her most angry and agonized was herself. She hated herself for being a doctor, yet failing to notice her husband's illness earlier. She hated herself for being a wife, yet never truly caring about her husband's health and feelings. She hated herself for why she only came to her senses when she had completely lost him. Only then did she understand what I truly meant to her. Those 800 days and nights of living together, I had long seeped into every crevice of her life, silently and formlessly like air. She had long grown, used to my presence, used to my care, used to my tolerance, and even used to my unreserved love. She enjoyed all of this, yet foolishly thought it was just a habit, not love. It wasn't until I completely disappeared, draining the air from her life, that she felt the suffocating pain, and belatedly realized that her heart had already made the choice for her. From the moment we got our marriage certificate, from the moment she decided to spend the rest of her life with me, I was already an inseparable part of her life. It wasn't that she didn't love me, it was just that this love came too late, and she understood it too late. It was hidden too deeply by her stupidity and selfishness. 2 days later, Zhou Zixuan had exhausted every method she could think of, yet she still couldn't contact me or find any trace of my whereabouts. Thinking of my life, fragile as a candle in the wind, the panic in her heart grew day by day. Terrified that she would never see me again in this lifetime, that even a final meeting had become an extravagant hope, Zhou Zixuan finally focused all her attention entirely on me. Sun Siyu had contacted her many times over the past few days, worried about her condition, but she ignored him completely. It wasn't until Sun Siyu came to her door out of concern that he saw Zhou Zixuan looking so haggard she barely resembled a human. Her eyes were swollen like peaches, with heavy dark circles as if she hadn't closed her eyes for days. "Sister Zixuan, what's wrong with you? What happened?" Sun Siyu was frightened by her appearance. At this point, Zhou Zixuan looked at Sun Siyu, her heart incredibly conflicted. She understood everything now. It was exactly because of her hesitation and wavering that she had deeply hurt two men. She couldn't drag this out any longer. She had to make everything clear. See you. Zhou Zixuan spoke, her voice hoarse and dry. I admit that I used to like you a lot. I liked you for many years. Sun Xiu froze, not expecting her to suddenly bring this up. But Zhou Zixuan took a deep breath, looking straight into his eyes, her tone clearer and firmer than ever before. That's all in the past. Now, in my heart, I only see you as a younger brother, as my best friend. The reason I haven't talked to you these past few days is because Yang Xiaoyu, mentioning his name, her voice started trembling again, and her eyes instantly turned red. I lost him, I hurt him, and now he doesn't want me anymore. Sun Xiu seemed to realize something, his face growing tense. Brother Xiaoyu, what exactly is your relationship with him? Zhou Zixuan answered without hesitation, word by word. He is my husband. We've been married for 5 years. What? Sun Xiu took a shocked step back, his face full of disbelief. You two are married, then the ex-wife Brother Xiaoyu mentioned he was divorcing is actually you? In that moment, Sun Xiu completely understood everything. He was so shocked he lost his voice, followed by boundless regret and guilt surging into his heart. So that strange sixth sense he had wasn't an illusion, and he had unknowingly become the third party interfering in someone else's marriage. He should have noticed it earlier. Zhou Zixuan's attitude towards him, the way she looked at him. So many details. What made him even more unable to forgive himself was that he had actually talked at length about his past with Zhou Zixuan right in front of me, and even asked me that damn question. Wasn't that just viciously rubbing salt into my bloody wounds? He had just gotten divorced himself, so he knew all too well what the pain of betrayal felt like. He couldn't believe that he had unknowingly become an accomplice to such a bastardly act, and might have even been the final straw that drove me away. Why did you hide all this? Sun Xiu's emotions were somewhat out of control, a mix of anger and self-blame. This is completely unfair to Brother Xiaoyu. Do you know how cruel this is to him? I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. It's all my fault. Zhou Zixuan lowered her head, tears surging out once again. She had long known she was wrong. But he won't even give me a chance to admit my mistakes. The person you should be apologizing to isn't me, it's Brother Xiaoyu. Sun Xiu's face turned cold, his tone stricter than ever before. Zhou Zixuan, do you know why I got divorced? My ex-wife had someone else in her heart too. I understand this feeling all too well. This is a massive trauma for Brother Xiaoyu. It's a betrayal. Zhou Zixuan cried even harder, her body swaying as if about to collapse. I know I should have known earlier, but I can't reach him now. He refuses to see me. He won't give me a chance to apologize. He wouldn't do that, Sun Xiu interrupted her, his gaze sharp. You've been married for 5 years. As long as you cared about him even a tiny bit, it's impossible for you to not be able to find him at all. He took a deep breath, his tone heavy and blunt. Maybe it's not that Brother Xiaoyu is becoming more and more heartless, but rather, it's your problem. Zhou Zixuan, you need to think carefully. Think about whether, over these 5 years, you never truly treated him as your husband, never treated him with genuine sincerity, which is why you know absolutely nothing about him. Zhou Zixuan's eyes filled with endless regret and pain. She remained silent, letting her tears flow. Seeing Zhou Zixuan's broken and silent state, Sun Xiu's chest full of anger and accusations ultimately could only dissolve into a heavy sigh. Think about it carefully. You two are husband and wife. It's impossible for you to not find him at all. Hurry up. Don't make Brother Xiaoyu wait too long. With those final words, Sun Xiu turned around and left without hesitation, without a trace of lingering attachment. Zhou Zixuan squatted on the floor, hugging her head, her tears soaking the carpet. 3 days later. This was the 5th day since I left. Zhou Zixuan felt like she was going crazy. During this time, she searched for anyone who might know my whereabouts, my colleagues, my neighbors, and even tried contacting my parents. Nothing. She even started to despairingly wonder if Yang Xiaoyu was already gone. The moment this thought popped up, she viciously suppressed it, which immediately brought an even more overwhelming terror. She didn't dare to imagine what she would do if, by the time she found me, we were already separated by life and death. She would never be able to forgive herself for the rest of her life. But extreme despair instead forced out a sliver of clarity. Zhou Zixuan ran to consult a lawyer, and the answer she got gave her a faint glimmer of hope. The lawyer told her that it was true the marriage relationship would automatically dissolve after the divorce cooling-off period ended, but to obtain the divorce certificate and completely finalize the legal divorce procedures, both parties needed to go to the marriage registration office together. If one party didn't show up, the other could file for divorce in court, but that would take time. In other words, as long as she didn't go to get the divorce certificate, or if I couldn't find her to get it, then legally, she and I weren't completely finished yet. I might still come back to find her because I needed to get the certificate. With a plan in mind, Zhou Zixuan seemed to be injected with new strength. She immediately ran to the hospital and found Director Liu. Director Liu, please help me one more time. Help me pass a message to Yang Xiaoyu. Tell him I agree to the divorce, but he has to come back, so we can go to the Civil Affairs Bureau together to get the divorce certificate. Otherwise, I can't be with Sun Xiu. These past few days, Director Liu had been keeping in touch with me, mainly to check on my condition, while also tactfully conveying Zhou Zixuan's anxiety and remorse. Hearing Zhou Zixuan say this now, Director Liu simply couldn't believe his ears. Little Joe, have you really thought this through? You're choosing Sun Siu and just giving up on the husband who has been through thick and thin with you for 5 years. He is currently director. Liu didn't finish his sentence, but his meaning was very clear. No, it's not like that. Zhou Zixuan quickly shook her head, her tone desperate and humble. Director Liu, you misunderstood. I've tried so many ways. But I can't reach Xiao Yu. This is the only excuse that might trick him into coming back. I've already made it clear to Sun Siu that we are just friends. The person I love has always been Xiao Yu. I beg you, help me one more time. Just let me see him once, so I can explain everything to him face to face, okay? Director Liu looked at Zhou Zixuan's haggard but determined expression. Thinking of her painful struggles over the past few days, he finally believed her sincerity. He sighed and agreed. On the other side, I had indeed packed my simple luggage from my hometown and was getting ready to set off on my planned farewell journey to life. These past few days, I had stayed with my parents, trying my best to make them happy. They also vaguely sensed that my health wasn't good. With my vague explanations, they just thought I was too tired from work and needed to rest. Although the two elders were reluctant to let me go, they still respected my choice, repeatedly reminding me to take good care of myself. Just as I arrived at the train station, my phone rang. It was a message from Director Liu. Xiao Yu. Dr. Zhou asked me to tell you that she agrees to the divorce, but she insists that you need to come back in person. Both parties must go to the Civil Affairs Bureau together to get the divorce certificate for this marriage to completely end legally. She said otherwise, she has no way to start a new life with Sun Siu. I froze for a moment when I saw the message, then immediately understood. So, it was because she wanted to be with Sun Siu as soon as possible that she was in such a rush to get the divorce certificate. Fine. I'm leaving anyway, so I might as well go back and get the procedures done clean. Li, completely fulfilling her wish will also settle a matter weighing on my mind. I didn't feel any heartache, only a sense of relief that the dust had settled. However, I still didn't want to see them again. Regarding the divorce certificate, I specifically called Lawyer Zhang to confirm. After getting an affirmative answer, I helplessly hung up the phone. Whatever, I'll make a trip back and make a clean break of it. I refunded my original ticket and changed it to a train ticket back to Haicheng. It's worth mentioning that my life seemed to be a bit more resilient than the doctors initially predicted. It had already surpassed the 1 month they originally gave me. My condition was even slightly better than when I was in the hospital. Although I was still weak, at least I wasn't vomiting blood as frequently. I didn't know the reason. Perhaps it was because after the divorce, the heavy boulder in my heart had been lifted, and my mood was much more relaxed. 6 or 7 hours later, the train arrived in Haicheng. Li Feng came to pick me up. As soon as we met, he looked me up and down in surprise. Your complexion looks better than last time. What's going on? Could it be a misdiagnosis? I smiled, pulled the car door open and got in. How is that possible? How can a terminal illness be misdiagnosed? It's probably just because I've been feeling more relaxed lately. The mind affects the body. Then why did you come back to see her now? Li Feng started the car and asked, puzzled. Why not take advantage of your good condition to go enjoy life and travel the world? Just handling some procedures. I'll leave as soon as they're done. I buckled my seatbelt, my tone indifferent. He continued, but why did she suddenly agree to the divorce so readily this time? I heard she was looking for you everywhere like crazy a while ago. Li Feng gossiped while driving. I looked at the rapidly retreating street view outside the window, my voice calm and waveless. She's going to marry Sun Siu, so she needs the divorce certificate. What? Li Feng jerked the steering wheel sharply, almost scraping the car next to us. His face turned red with anger. That woman, even now, her heart is still with that guy. Xiao Yu, if you ask me, you shouldn't have come back. Screw her. She doesn't deserve you making a special trip for this. But I didn't care anymore. I smiled. It's fine to come back. Before I leave, I don't want to owe her anything anymore, and I don't want any more entanglements. Making a clean break will give me peace of mind too. Shortly after getting in the car, I received a message from Director Liu, asking if I had returned to Haicheng and suggesting I go back to the hospital for a checkup, but I didn't agree. He already knew about my relationship with Zhou Zixuan now. I didn't even need to think about it to know that Zhou Zixuan was definitely waiting at the hospital. Please help me tell Zhou Zixuan to meet me at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Let's get this over with quickly. I don't have much time. When the message was sent, Zhou Zixuan was standing right by Director Liu's side. At that moment, her heart, full of anticipation and joy, instantly sank. The disappointment almost suffocated her. But Director Liu had already helped her a lot. Zhou Zixuan didn't hesitate and immediately replied, agreeing to meet tomorrow. Then she rushed straight home. She hadn't been idle during this time. She carefully went over every detail of their 5 years of marriage. Relying on her memory and the photos I had sent her back then, she tried her best to hunt down the exact same items online. She bought back all the couple's items and home decorations that I had sold or thrown away, trying to restore the old house to exactly how it was when I left. She even prepared some surprises for me at home, a handwritten apology letter, and meals she had clumsily tried to cook. She had even taken a long leave of absence from the hospital, planning to stay by my side and take care of me every step of the way during my final days. The next day, I waited punctually at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Zhou Zixuan arrived late, but she came empty-handed. At that moment, I knew she wasn't here to get a divorce. You asked me to come here to get the divorce certificate, but you didn't bring anything. My tone was full of impatience, just as cold as she used to be towards me. Knowing that I didn't have much time to waste, Zhou Zixuan's heart was fiercely pierced by my cold words. It hurt so much that she trembled. She didn't expect that the moment we met, the first thing out of my mouth would be about divorce and wasting time. Looking at my current state, although I was still thin and pale, and anyone could tell at a glance that I was sick, compared to the ashen look she saw in the video I left behind, I was already doing much better. Zhou Zixuan's emotions were incredibly complicated. Could it be that for a terminally ill patient like me, divorce was actually a relief and a cure? Xiao Yu, have you been doing okay these past few days? She looked at me and asked cautiously. As you can see, I twitched the corners of my mouth, revealing a smile devoid of any warmth. I feel much better after the divorce. My words smashed heavily onto Zhou Zixuan's chest like a giant boulder, making all the words she had prepared for days get stuck in her throat. She couldn't say a single word. How she wanted to rush up and hug me, to tell me she was wrong, that she loved me, and beg me not to leave. But even though we were standing right in front of each other, the distance between our hearts seemed to be separated by an insurmountable chasm. I forgot to bring the household register and ID card. Zhou Zixuan lowered her head, her voice very soft, carrying a barely noticeable tremble. Will you come back with me to get them? Zhou Zixuan, we're not kids anymore. I frowned, my tone carrying a hint of sarcasm. This excuse is too lame. Just tell me straight what kind of trick you're trying to pull. I don't have time to play games with you. Seeing my cold and distant demeanor, Zhou Zixuan felt a terrible ache in her heart. It was as if she had run out of options. She could only abandon those carefully prepared surprises and use the clumsiest, yet most genuine way to say cautiously, no, it's not an excuse. I really couldn't find them. Over the years, all the documents at home have always been organized by you. I don't know where you put them. Can you come back and help me? Find them, please. This wasn't entirely a lie. Over the years, I had indeed handled all the trivial matters at home. She didn't even know how to pay the utility bills. I looked at her red eyes and that pleading look. In the end, my heart softened just a tiny bit. Forget it. I'll just consider it helping her one last time. Let's go. I turned and walked toward the street to hail a cab. Zhou Zixuan hurriedly followed. I drove. Let's take my car. I glanced at her and didn't object. The atmosphere inside the car was suffocatingly oppressive. Zhou Zixuan couldn't stand this deathly silence. She took a deep breath and took the initiative to break the silence. Xiao Yu, have you been going to the hospital for your checkups on time lately? Have you been taking your medicine? She asked, her voice filled with unconcealable worry. That's none of your business, Miss Ex-Wife. I didn't look at her. My gaze remained fixed on the fleeting street scenes outside the window. The disappointment and sadness on her face almost overflowed. Xiao Yu. Her fingers tightened around the steering wheel, her voice trembling slightly. I consulted a lawyer. The end of the divorce cooling-off period only means the marriage is automatically dissolved. But to get the divorce certificate and completely finalize the legal procedures, both parties need to be present. If I don't go, or if you can't find me, this divorce won't be finalized. She paused, observing my reaction through the rearview mirror, and continued. I could just not go. I raised an eyebrow in surprise and turned to look at her. Zhou Zixuan, there's no point in us dragging this out any longer. You have your son Siyu waiting for you, and I want to live for myself in the final moments of my life. We're no longer on the same path. My tone was calm, even carrying a trace of exhausted relief. I signed the declaration voluntarily giving up all marital property to you. What else are you dissatisfied with? Why must you hold on to me? It's not because of any of that. Zhou Zixuan shook her head vigorously, her eyes turning red again. She deliberately slowed down the car, her gaze landing on me from time to time, her eyes full of struggle and pain. I'm not trying to pester you. I just can't accept this. Her voice choked with sobs. I can't accept that you won't even give me a chance to explain. I can't accept that you won't give me a chance to express my feelings for you. I can't accept that you just left without saying goodbye, not giving me any chance to make you stay. Those three can't accepts sounded like an accusation, and also like a humble plea for a chance. But I would no longer be moved by these words. Save those words for Sun Siyu. With one sentence, I pushed Zhou Zixuan into a corner again. She was momentarily at a loss for words, not understanding why I had become so heartless. The Yang Xiaoyu of the past clearly valued her more than his own life. Xiaoyu, do you still not understand what I mean? She was so anxious that her voice cracked. I don't want a divorce. I want you to stay. I want to start over with you. Let's get back together, okay? What a start over. With just one light sentence, she wanted to erase my 5 years of humble devotion, erase the pain and despair that almost cost me my life. But I still didn't understand. Soon Siyu was single again, and she and I were about to completely separate. Wasn't this exactly the opportunity she had dreamed of? Why would she, at this time, turn around and say she wanted to get back together with me? My silence made Zhou Zixuan inexplicably panic. Don't stay silent. Are you still thinking about Sun Siyu? Zhou Zixuan's eyes reddened, her tone panicked. Xiao Yu, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have hurt you time and time again because of someone from the past. I hope you can forgive me and give me a chance to make it up to you, okay? No, why the sudden apology? This wasn't the Zhou Zixuan I knew. When had she ever been so submissive? I had waited 5 years for this, I'm sorry, and never got it. Now that we were getting divorced, what was the point of saying it? I smiled, my smile full of exhaustion and distance. I will forgive you. After we officially complete the divorce procedures. With that one sentence, Zhou Zixuan opened her mouth, but was rendered speechless again. It was as if all the strength had been instantly drained from her body. Looking as lonely as a lost child. Xiao Yu, do we really have to get a divorce? Her voice was very soft, carrying a humble plea. I really don't want to deal with you. There's no need for this. I sighed, my tone softening a bit but still firm. We've been together for 5 years. I only hope we can give each other a somewhat decent ending. I'll step aside so you and Sun Siu can have your bright future, and you can give me this last bit of peace and freedom. Right now, I only have one thought. Finish the paperwork as soon as possible, make a clean break, and then leave. I don't have much time left. There are still too many things I want to experience on my own. I don't have the time to sit here and listen to your empty confessions. I don't want to. Zhou Zixuan suddenly raised her voice, crying. Xiao Yu, I lied to you. I'm actually not going to marry Sun Siu. I've already made everything clear to him. I did like him in the past. But ever since he got married, I've only seen him as a younger brother. You are the one I love. You've already walked into my heart. Can you please not leave me again? Zhou Zixuan finally found the chance to pour out everything in her heart all at once. But I wasn't buying it. My story with Zhou Zixuan was long and painful, like a damp, cold nightmare. Now that I had finally managed to break free from it, covered in bruises, she wanted me to go back with just a few words? Impossible. Zhou Zixuan. I turned my head and looked into her eyes, my tone calm and cruel. You have zero credibility with me anymore. A simple sentence, but to Zhou Zixuan, it was the heaviest blow. I used to unreservedly believe her every word, every look, every promise. But she had personally destroyed all of that, personally wearing away all my expectations and love for her. Zhou Zixuan's heart ached as if it were being twisted, but she had long anticipated this rejection. She refused to give up. Taking a deep breath, she spoke again, her tone filled with desperate determination. Xiao Yu, I know I've broken your heart. Can you just give me one chance? Let me slowly mend it. I'll prove to you with my actions that I love you. I really love you. After the divorce is finalized. I looked away, my tone impatient. You can prove it however you want, to whoever you want. I won't stop you. Just drive faster. I'm tired. Seeing how impervious I was, Zhou Zixuan's heart turned ice cold. She didn't dare say anything more, afraid of truly angering me and losing even this last chance to share a car ride with me. There were no more words along the way. The car finally stopped at the old house's underground garage. I didn't give her another chance to speak, simply pushing the door open and getting out. Zhou Zixuan sat stunned in the driver's seat, a heavy knot in her chest. In the end, she could only let out a heavy sigh, get out of the car, and follow behind me. We walked out of the elevator and arrived at the front door. Zhou Zixuan suddenly seemed a bit nervous. Her fingers trembled slightly as she unlocked the door with her key. Xiao Yu. She stepped aside, her voice carrying a trace of hidden anticipation and apprehension. Welcome home. The scene inside the door made me freeze. My things had clearly been cleared out, but right now, the living room looked almost exactly as it did before I left. The throw pillow I usually leaned on was on the sofa. The mug I used was on the coffee table. There was even a slightly lopsided cream cake in the center of the dining table, next to a few plates of home-cooked dishes that didn't look very appetizing. These are all for you. Zhou Zixuan looked at me, her eyes full of anticipation and caution. Xiao Yu, don't leave me, okay? I stood at the door and didn't go in immediately. My gaze swept over these deliberate restorations and clumsy surprises. I felt no emotion, only a deep sense of exhaustion and absurdity. Put it all away. I spoke, my voice flat. We're here to get the documents. This kind of setup is inappropriate. I walked into the house and changed into slippers. I asked in a flat tone, where did you get these things? I was absolutely certain that my belongings were all at my parents' place in my hometown. What was here could only be replicas. Xiao Yu, Zhou Zixuan, didn't expect this reaction from me. From the moment we met, every sentence I spoke revolved around divorce. She finally clearly realized that 5 years of neglect and hurt had completely erased the young Xiao Yu, whose eyes were once full of her. What was left was only an empty shell that had closed all the doors to its heart to her. She fell silent for a moment before answering in a low voice. I found them one by one online, matching them with the photos you took before in your shopping records. It wasn't too much trouble. I took a long leave, so I had time. Her voice grew lower and lower, thick with a nasal tone. Because only by doing this could I create an illusion for myself. The illusion that you hadn't left. Only then could I hold on to a tiny bit of hope. Maybe one day you'd push the door open and come home just like before. Xiao Yu, I don't know how to get through the days without you. This time, I was actually a little touched. Not because I was moved, but because it was pathetic. Pathetic for the past me, and for the present her. If this were 5 years ago, or even 1 year ago, seeing Zhou Zixuan do all this for me, I would probably be ecstatic. I would feel that all my efforts were worth it, that I had finally seen the light at the end of the tunnel. But now, I had finally freed myself from this hopeless, one-sided love, and I was no longer willing to waste a single second of emotion or energy on her. I replied softly, my tone still flat. If you want to keep them, keep them. You can slowly throw them away later. You'll get used to it after the divorce. I walked straight toward the bedroom to get the household register and ID card needed for the divorce. I knew exactly where they were. In a small, locked drawer. Zhou Zixuan stood stunned at the door, watching my back as I walked toward the bedroom without hesitation. Her heart ached so much she couldn't breathe. She gradually realized that my personality might have been like this all along, not the way she had always seen it over the years. Always accommodating, infinitely tolerant, and endlessly gentle. It turned out that in those 5 years, all my patience, my good temper, my gentleness, and consideration were all because I loved her. Because of love, I was willing to wrong myself, swallow all my bad moods, hide all my sharp edges, and only show her my warmest side. But what about her? She was too ignorant, too selfish, taking all of this for granted, way too much. It wasn't until it was this late, until she had completely lost me, that she finally understood. That Yang Xiaoyu, who was always patient and gentle with her, would never come back. Zhou Zixuan squatted by the door, tears streaming down her face. She desperately covered her mouth to stop herself from crying out loud. Because she had brought all of this upon herself. Because Zhou Zixuan had restored the room to its original state, those documents weren't hard to find. I quickly took them out of the drawer. As soon as I walked out of the bedroom, I saw Zhou Zixuan slumped by the door, her shoulders trembling slightly, her eyes and nose red. She had obviously just been crying. I frowned. What kind of trick was this now? Pleading and apologizing hadn't worked, so now she was playing the victim to gain sympathy. I walked over, my tone carrying a faint hint of suspicion. Are you feeling sick? If she dared to fake an illness to stall for time, I would turn around and leave immediately. No. Zhou Zixuan hurriedly wiped her face with the back of her hand and forced herself to stand up, forcing a smile that looked worse than crying. Let's go. Downstairs. To the car. This time, there were no words exchanged on the way. Zhou Zixuan didn't say anything else, just drove in silence, staring straight ahead. The car finally stopped at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau again. Hurry up. I checked the time. They're about to get off work. It was indeed getting late. I was worried that if we dragged this out until they closed, it would delay things for another day. So I simply grabbed Zhou Zixuan's hand and walked quickly into the Civil Affairs Bureau. The warmth from my palm made Zhou Zixuan daze out for a moment. Once upon a time, when she and I came to get our marriage certificate, we were just as rushed. Back then, I was probably afraid she would change her mind, afraid she would back out at the last minute. So I held her hand tightly the whole way, walking very fast. My face was filled with uncontrollable excitement and joy. That look, unconsciously seemed to have dispelled some of the confusion and fear she had about marriage. Zhou Zixuan realized in hindsight that from that moment on, I had already started to slowly walk into her heart. But now, the same scene, the same people, even holding her hand and walking quickly in the same way, everything had changed. Zhou Zixuan's eyes dimmed. Like a puppet, she let me pull her along to take photos step by step, fill out forms, sign, and press our fingerprints. When the document with the words divorce certificate printed on it was finally handed to each of us, I visibly breathed a sigh of relief. My tense shoulders relaxed, and even my pale face showed a hint of relieved ease. Finally, I muttered to myself. Holding that divorce certificate, I looked at it over and over again, the corners of my mouth unconsciously curling into a very faint smile. I was truly free. Xiao Yu. Zhou Zixuan looked at the glaring red document in my hand, and then at the undisguised expression on my face. Her heart felt like a piece had been violently gouged out, hurting so much she could barely stand. But amidst this heartbreak and despair, a thought grew wildly in her mind, like weeds. Since I was so resistant to staying in our previous marriage, fine, the marriage could end. But the end of the marriage didn't mean that my story with her had to end too. We could have new identities, a new beginning. She suddenly made up her mind, as if she had figured something out, her eyes refocusing on me. Xiao Yu, she called out to me just as I was about to turn and leave. Perhaps because we had finally made a clean break and I was in a good mood, this was the first time since the divorce that I responded to her with a somewhat peaceful tone. Zhou Zixuan took a deep breath, looked into my eyes, and said clearly and firmly, word by word, "Let's start over." What? I thought I had misheard, looking at her in astonishment. Zhou Zixuan, are you out of your mind? I went through so much trouble to finally divorce you and completely break free from this relationship, and you turn around and tell me to start over? Zhou Zixuan looked at my incredulous expression, but her resolve only grew stronger, her thoughts clearer. What I mean is, she took a step forward, her tone serious. Although our marriage has ended, we're still old classmates, aren't we? Even if we're divorced and can't be husband and wife, it's good to be friends. Friends? I subconsciously frowned and refused. Forget it. Looking at Zhou Zixuan's unusually bright eyes, I couldn't shake the feeling she was up to something. Knowing her, this wasn't the behavior of someone who had truly let go. Who in their right mind gets divorced over infidelity and can still be friends without any hard feelings? But I didn't expect Zhou Zixuan to actually have a solid counter-argument this time. Xiao Yu, that's really uncool of you. She slightly raised her chin, her tone carrying a hint of deliberate grievance. You wanted a divorce. Even though I stalled for time, in the end, didn't I still cooperate and finish the paperwork with you? You can't just burn the bridge the moment you cross it. Did you forget what you said to me in the car just now? What nonsense are you talking about? I was a little annoyed by her vulgar analogy. Speak. Zhou Zixuan stared into my eyes and repeated word for word. As long as I agree to divorce you, then however I want to prove it, to whoever I want to prove it. It's entirely up to me. You also said that as long as we get divorced, you will forgive me. Did you say those words or not? Seeing Zhou Zixuan's expression of having caught me red-handed, the corners of my mouth twitched. I did say those words, but at the time, I was just brushing her off so I could get rid of her and finalize the divorce as quickly as possible. I never imagined she would still hold onto those words after the divorce. Yeah, I said that. I rubbed my forehead, feeling a headache coming on. I can forgive you, but I really have somewhere to be right now. Whatever you want to prove, let's save it for next time. Next time? Zhou Zixuan immediately grabbed my wrist, her gaze stubborn. Don't even think about running. How do I know when the next time will be? What if you disappear again? If I'm going to prove it, it has to be now. Her tone was resolute. No, I tried to pull my hand away, feeling exasperated. Who tries to prove themselves to their ex-husband? Why don't you go prove it to your son Siu? I'll say it one last time. Zhou Zixuan's expression turned serious, and she gripped my hand even tighter. I only see him as a younger brother. I only want to prove it to the person I care about. Whether I call you my ex-husband or an old classmate, you can't deny that we still have a connection, right? So I like you and want to prove my feelings to you. Is that not allowed? Xiao Yu, you promised me this yourself. You wouldn't go back on your word, would you? Zhou Zixuan stared intently into my eyes, as if testing my limits, and also as if betting on my reaction. I won't go back on my word. I was left somewhat speechless by her logic and could only answer reluctantly. Who you prove it to is your business, but whether I accept it or not is another story. I really have to go now. Perhaps because we were already divorced and legally had no more ties, I didn't feel the same intense hostility toward Zhou Zixuan as I did in the car, and my attitude had softened a bit. Zhou Zixuan keenly picked up on this subtle shift. A gleam flashed in her eyes, and her tone relaxed slightly. She began to guide me patiently. Okay, if you want to leave, I won't stop you. She let go of my hand, but her body still blocked my path. But I want your contact info. A new one. That's not too much to ask, right? Otherwise, if you leave and disappear like last time, where am I supposed to find you when I want to prove it? As long as you give me a guaranteed way to reach you, I'll consider letting you go. Zhou Zixuan didn't look like she was joking. Knowing her personality, if I didn't give her my contact info today, she would very likely keep pestering me and not let me leave. I was genuinely tired and just wanted to get away as soon as possible. Left with no choice, I compromised. Fine. I took out my phone, my tone carrying a warning. But you have to promise not to harass me anymore. If you bother me or say weird things again, I will immediately block and delete you. We can only interact as old classmates, understand? Of course, no problem. Zhou Zixuan agreed exceptionally fast. She immediately pulled out her phone, looking at me eagerly. Her straightforward attitude actually made me a bit nervous, wondering if she had some ulterior motive. But the words were already out, so I had no choice but to add her on my new WeChat. The moment we exchanged contacts, I turned around, not wanting to stay a second longer. Zhou Zixuan, however, followed right behind me, chattering non-stop about laying down ground rules as we walked. Xiao Yu, I promise I won't bother you. But you also have to promise not to silently delete me, block me, or ignore me again. When I talk to you, you have to reply. You can't give me the cold shoulder, and you can't brush me off. Also, no, were these rules for an old classmate or a couple? Back when I was chasing her, I didn't even dare make this many demands. Now she was turning the tables on me. My head hurt just listening to her. I quickly raised my hand to hail a taxi, pulled the door open, and got in. I blurted out Li Feng's address to the driver. Sir, let's go, quickly. The car started. Before we pulled away, I saw in the rearview mirror that Zhou Zixuan was still standing there, waving at me. Her expression wasn't exactly overjoyed, but her eyes were unusually bright, brimming with confidence. Married for 5 years, I knew her too well. She didn't want to be just an old classmate. This was clearly just a change of identity, so she could start pursuing me all over again. If this were the past, I might have been moved to tears, feeling that my suffering had finally paid off. But now, my heart was long dead and would never beat for her again. As for her pursuit, whatever, I was going to die soon anyway. Before long, I would leave this city completely and fly far away. The divorce was finalized, and I had given up the assets. It wouldn't affect her future. This kind of ending was already good enough for me. I leaned back against the taxi seat and tiredly closed my eyes. I went to Li Feng's place to meet up with him. I originally wanted to properly celebrate being single again, but he absolutely refused to let me indulge, insisting on dragging me to the hospital for a checkup. I really don't need to, man. I know my own body. No way. Li Feng was adamant. Getting divorced is a huge deal. What if it washes away the bad luck and your body gets better? You have to get checked. I'm going with you. I really couldn't argue with him, and I was afraid he'd get suspicious, so I let him half drag me to the hospital. To make sure I didn't slip away halfway, Li Feng even took time off work, swearing to keep an eye on me until all the tests were done. Actually, you really don't need to watch me. I sat on a bench in the hospital corridor, watching the patients come and go. I'm already at the hospital. It's not like I can run away. Li Feng gave me a look that clearly said, yeah, right. But soon, a call came from his company. The IT system in his department had a critical failure. He was the only one in the whole company who could fix it, and his boss urgently ordered him back. Li Feng held his phone, looking torn. He looked at me, then at his phone, caught in a dilemma. I took the chance to urge him, "Look, work is important. You should head back." "I really won't run. I'll wait here for the checkup. When it's done, I'll call you." Li Feng hesitated again and again. Finally, swayed by my repeated promises and his boss's relentless calls, he gave in. He watched me walk into Director Lu's office and close the door before finally leaving, looking back every few steps. With the door closed, it was just Director Lu and me in the office. I walked over and sat down. Actually, I hadn't lied to Li Feng. Even if he hadn't forced me to come, I had planned to see Director Lu before leaving. If it weren't for Director Lu checking in on me and adjusting my medication over the past month, I might not have even survived the divorce cooling-off period. "Director Lu." "Xiao Yu, you're here." Director Lu looked a bit surprised to see me. He looked me over carefully. "Your color looks a bit better than last time. With less weighing on your mind, you seem more relaxed." I smiled. "I'm leaving on a train tonight. I came by mainly to see you and thank you for all your care recently. As for the checkup, there's really not much point. Compared to the painful entanglement a month ago, I was completely at peace now." Director Liu, however, looked at me with eyes full of pity. "I heard about you and Zixuan," he sighed. "If divorce is something that brings you relief and happiness, then it might actually be good for your health. It's just that Zixuan is one of my brightest students. I've seen the changes and the pain she's gone through lately. Of course, I have no right to tell you what to do. It's just that the way things ended between you two. Is it really over just like that? Is there really no chance left?" Director Liu flipped through my medical records, talking to me as if we were just chatting casually. He rarely got involved in his students' personal lives. He just felt that it was a real shame about Zhou Zixuan and me. If he had known the situation earlier, maybe Zhou Zixuan wouldn't have been absent. I wasn't too resistant to the topic, my tone very flat. Who knows? Before tomorrow comes, anything can happen. But one thing won't change. She and I are already divorced. As for whether we cut ties completely or stay friends in the future, it doesn't matter anymore. I really don't have that much time left to dwell on these things. My answer showed Director Liu that my stance wasn't as absolute as Zhou Zixuan had described. Perhaps things hadn't reached a complete dead end yet. But as a doctor, his primary duty was still to remind me. "Xiao Yu, don't constantly think about how much time you have left. No one can say for sure, not even me. You just need to live well and keep your spirits up. That's what's best for your condition. Stay away from anyone or anything that makes you unhappy for now. Your condition is more stable now than it was a month ago. That's a good thing." I solemnly thanked Director Liu, exchanged a few more pleasantries, and then stood up to leave. Director Liu personally got up to see me out. There was pity in his eyes, but mostly, it was well wishes. "Go on. Be safe on the road, and keep in touch." He patted my shoulder. Walking to the door, he pulled it open. Looking up, he saw that Zhou Zixuan had quietly appeared at the door at some point. Her gaze bypassed Director Liu's shoulder and landed squarely on me. "When did you get here?" Director Liu was startled, clutching his chest. "Oh my poor old heart." Seeing Zhou Zixuan, my heart also skipped a beat. Who leaked the news? Wasn't she off duty today? Why was she here? It seemed this wasn't a good place to stick around. "Director Liu, no need to see me out. I can find my own way. Take care." I said my goodbyes to Director Liu and prepared to leave. Walking to the door, Zhou Zixuan and I brushed past each other, exchanging a wordless glance. She didn't try to stop me this time. She just silently stepped half a pace aside. I quickly walked away toward the elevator. But when I reached the hospital entrance and glanced back, I realized Zhou Zixuan had been following me the whole time, keeping a short distance and trailing me silently. "Why do you keep following me?" I finally stopped, exasperated, and turned to look at her. Zhou Zixuan quickened her pace and walked up to me. Her face was expressionless, and her tone was very calm. "Nothing. I just wanted to experience how you felt back then." "What feeling?" "Just..." She tilted her head slightly, as if reminiscing. "When your heart and eyes are completely filled with one person, you really do unconsciously follow behind them. Even just looking at their back feels wonderful." I was momentarily stunned by her words, unsure of how to respond. "When we were in college," Zhou Zixuan continued walking forward, side by side with me, her voice soft. "I remember every time evening study hall ended, you would conveniently appear near our classroom, and then follow me all the way to my dorm building. At first, I thought you were some creepy stalker, and almost reported you to campus security." The corners of her mouth curled up, revealing a nostalgic smile. "Later, I found out you just wanted to look at me a little longer and walk me back." There were too many shared memories between Zhou Zixuan and me. As she brought them up one by one, her tone lacked its former coldness. Instead, it carried a belated gentleness and nostalgia. Those fragments of the past flickered before my eyes like an old movie reel. My heart was inevitably touched, and my emotions rippled. Zhou Zixuan was still listing all the nice things I had done for her over the years. Remembering how I would silently prepare brown sugar ginger tea for her during her period. Knowing she had a bad stomach, I would get her bland meals ahead of time. If she casually mentioned liking a certain book, that exact book would magically appear in front of her the next time we met. All those details I thought she never cared about it, turned out she remembered them all. But coming from her mouth, these shared memories were full of belated appreciation and beauty. Yet to my ears, they were just a bitter history I couldn't bear to look back on. "Enough. That's really enough. Just say what you want to say." I interrupted her. "I have to go." Zhou Zixuan stopped and looked at me, her eyes serious. Where are you going? I'll give you a ride. Are you going to tell me or not? If not, I'm getting a cab. I frowned, not wanting to deal with her anymore. What I want to say is, I want to give you a ride. Zhou Zixuan looked at me stubbornly. As an old classmate who happened to bump into you at the hospital, offering you a ride isn't asking too much, is it? You clearly promised me yesterday that you wouldn't push me away like this. How can you go back on your word? The next moment, she started bringing up again how gentle, reliable, and wonderful I used to be. I was so annoyed by her nagging that I just wanted to escape as quickly as possible. Reluctantly, I gave in. Fine, I agree. Go get your car. Zhou Zixuan's eyes lit up, and she immediately agreed. Don't you dare sneak off. Wait for me, old classmate. Only after repeatedly warning me not to run did she hurry toward the parking lot. Not run? Yeah, right. Watching her walk away, I immediately stepped to the curb to hail a taxi. But strangely enough, the hospital entrance, which was usually bustling with traffic, didn't have a single empty cab today. I waited for ages without seeing a single taxi. Seeing that Zhou Zixuan's car was about to pull up, I quickly lowered my head and walked briskly down the sidewalk, hoping to catch a cab at the next intersection. Xiaoyu, I knew you'd try to sneak away. I hadn't gotten far when a familiar honk sounded beside me. I turned my head. Zhou Zixuan was driving alongside me at a crawl, her window rolled down. Her face held a mix of I knew it and a slight pout. Get in, old classmate. She stopped the car. I looked at her, and finally, with a sigh of defeat, pulled the door open. I got in. Where to? She asked. I don't know, just drive, I snapped. But Zhou Zixuan acted as if she had just heard the sweetest compliment, her eyes curving into a smile. Xiaoyu, does that mean you want to spend more time with me? I was speechless and silently turned my head to look out the window. How did I never realize before that she was so pushy and relentless? To Li Feng's house. I gave her an address. Then I immediately added, don't say another word. Let me have some peace and quiet, or I'm getting out right now. The threat worked. Zhou Zixuan shut her mouth and drove quietly, but her driving speed was way too slow. It was as if she was deliberately dragging out the trip, just to spend a little more time with me. I couldn't be bothered to call her out on it or care. We would reach the destination eventually anyway. Just like our marriage, no matter how much we dragged it out, the day would come when we'd go our separate ways. I didn't know how much time had passed. I rested my eyes in the car, feeling drowsy. In the silence, Zhou Zixuan suddenly spoke. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was exceptionally clear and serious. Xiaoyu, Director Liu and I have been repeatedly studying and discussing your case lately. We both agree that your condition isn't as bad as you think. It's not an absolute dead end. With your current state, if you actively cooperate with the treatment and adjust your mindset, it's entirely possible to control the illness, prolong your life, or even see a turning point. Zhou Zixuan's tone was more serious and earnest than ever before. Lately, my illness had almost become her inner demon. She spent day and night reading literature, studying medical cases, and discussing treatment plans with Director Liu. The greatest fear for a doctor is the sheer helplessness of facing the illness of the person they love most. Zhou Zixuan didn't want to face such a tragedy. She hadn't realized it before, but now she did. She absolutely couldn't accept me giving up like this. How could she give up on my life? She still wanted to spend the rest of her life with me. So this was the real reason she insisted on driving me. I had never thought about surviving. From the moment I learned I had a terminal illness, everything I did was about letting go, cutting off relationships, handling my final affairs, and making arrangements for my parents. There's no need. I looked out the window, my voice calm. The time I have left should be enough for me to visit a few places I've always wanted to see. It's not enough, not even close. Hearing that I still wanted to give up treatment, Zhou Zixuan instantly grew anxious, her voice rising. China is so big, and there are so many places you want to go. You need a long, long time to travel and see them all. 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. When you're done seeing the country, there's still the rest of the world. There's so much scenery left. I'll be by your side through it all. Xiaoyu, I can't lose you. You can't be this irresponsible. Her urgent words were mixed with a near-begging choke. I understood what she meant, but my heart was like a well that had been dry for too long. It couldn't make a single ripple anymore. We're already divorced. I turned to look at her red eyes, my tone still flat. I have no obligation to be responsible for you. That's still not an excuse. You have to get treated. Zhou Zixuan practically roared. Then, realizing her tone was too harsh, she quickly softened her voice. With a crying tone, she said, even if you don't have the obligation of a spouse, you still have the obligation of an old classmate, a friend. What obligation does an old classmate have? I asked in return. The obligation to live well. Zhou Zixuan grabbed my arm, her fingers trembling slightly. Xiaoyu, I don't care. Even if you refuse to get back together with me for the rest of your life and never speak to me again, I still want you to live well. I'm begging you. Promise me you'll accept the treatment, okay? Believe me, I can do this. Director Liu also said there's still a chance. We haven't reached the end yet. Please. The more she spoke, the more agitated she became. Her voice choked up, and tears fell uncontrollably. I didn't expect her to have such a huge reaction. Perhaps it was a doctor's professional instinct. She just couldn't stand seeing a patient give up on treatment. I didn't take it to heart. Just then, the car arrived at the gate of Li Feng's neighborhood. I'm here. I opened the car door, ready to get out. Xiao Yu, Zhou Zixuan called out from behind me, her voice hoarse and broken. I'm sorry, I was too emotional just now, I shouldn't have pushed you. But you really do still have a chance. Please think it over carefully, okay? Also, she wiped away her tears, as if suddenly remembering something. Son, see you. He wants to add your contact info and talk to you. Are you willing to? Listening to Zhou Zixuan's cautious voice and looking at her red eyes, how could I not understand that feeling of humble hope in her heart right now? For the past 5 years, I had always felt exactly like that. Perhaps it was because people become kinder when facing death. Or perhaps I had finally let go completely and couldn't harden my heart anymore. Or maybe I just felt that Sun Xiu himself hadn't really done anything wrong. I stayed silent for a few seconds before finally giving a gentle nod. Okay. When I got back to Li Feng's house, he wasn't home yet. Just as I put down my things, my phone buzzed. It was a new friend request. The sender was Sun Xiu. The request note read, Brother Xiao Yu, it's Sun Xiu. I have some things I want to say to you. Is it a good time to chat? Seeing this name again, my feelings were complicated. I really didn't hate Sun Xiu. I even felt that we were somewhat kindred spirits in our misery. But I didn't know what he wanted to talk to me about now. With an indescribable feeling, I tapped to accept the friend request. As soon as I accepted, Xiu's message came through immediately, as direct as ever. Brother Xiao Yu, do you have time this afternoon? I'd like to meet up and chat for a bit. He was still so straightforward. My fingers hovered over the screen, momentarily unsure of how to reply. My feelings towards Sun Xiu had always been complicated. In front of him, I was an absolute failure. In Zhou Zixuan's heart, I had never won against him even once. I used to be jealous of him, even secretly hating him. I hated how he could easily occupy all of Zhou Zixuan's thoughts without having to do a single thing. But after he shared some of his true feelings with me the last time we met, I realized he wasn't the deeply scheming person I had imagined. On the contrary, I felt we actually got along quite well. All the conflict and opposition between us stemmed from Zhou Zixuan. He was Zhou Zixuan's childhood friend, the unattainable first love hidden deep in her heart. And I was Zhou Zixuan's legal husband, yet a pathetic worm who had never walked into her heart. Now that Zhou Zixuan and I were divorced, logically, I should draw a clear line with Sun Xiu and cut ties with anyone around him. But for some reason, I actually felt a faint desire to see Sun Xiu, wanting to know what exactly he wanted to tell me. It just so happened that my train was in the evening, so I did have free time in the afternoon. After thinking for a few seconds, I replied, sure, you set the time and place. Sun Xiu quickly sent a restaurant location and a meeting time for the afternoon. I arrived at the restaurant Sun Xiu had booked right on time. It was an elegant private kitchen, uncrowded and very quiet. Sun Xiu was already there, sitting by the window. Seeing me, he immediately stood up, a regretful smile on his face. Brother Xiao Yu, over here. It had been a while since we last met, and Sun Xiu seemed to have changed a bit. His face lacked the high-spirited look from our last meeting, replaced by a bit more maturity. We sat down and finished ordering. The atmosphere was a bit awkward for a moment. After all, we weren't really close, and we had few common topics. Sun Xiu was the first to speak. He held his water glass with both hands, gripping it slightly. His expression was serious, even carrying a hint of formality. Brother Xiao Yu, I asked you out this time for no other reason than to apologize to you in person. Apologize? I was a bit surprised. Apologize for what? Sun Xiu lowered his head, his voice deep. For the stupid things I did and the stupid things I said before, when I didn't know the truth. I really didn't know that you and Sister Zixuan were married. If I had known, I absolutely wouldn't have talked about my past with her in front of you, let alone ask that damn question. He looked up, his eyes filled with sincere guilt. I know my presence and the things I said must have hurt you. It might even be one of the reasons that pushed you to leave. I am truly, deeply sorry. So that was what this was about. The slight guard in my heart suddenly dropped. I even felt a sense of relief. It's nothing. You can say whatever you want. I didn't really mind, and you don't need to blame yourself too much. My tone was peaceful. My leaving does have something to do with you. But to say you pushed me away would be an exaggeration. Bringing it up again, the jealousy and hatred I once felt were long gone from my heart. All that remained was the calm and detachment of a dying person who had seen through the ways of the world. The main reason I left was because of the problems between Zhou Zixuan and me. My feelings for her have been exhausted, and I can't wait anymore. It's between her and me. It has nothing to do with you. Faced with my candor, the guilt in Sun Xiu's eyes only deepened. But Sister Zixuan also did those things that broke your heart because of me. No matter what, I can't absolve myself of responsibility for your divorce. I'm a sinner, Brother Xiao Yu. He looked at me, his eyes very sincere. To be honest, after our last chat, I truly considered you a friend I could confide in. Even though it might be too late to realize this now, I still hope you can give Sister Zixuan another chance. Could you two remarry? Sun Xiu's words took me completely by surprise. I had thought many people might urge me to remarry Zhou Zixuan. My parents, friends, even Director Liu. But I never expected Sun Xiu to be the one urging me. Logically speaking, now that Zhou Zixuan and I were divorced, he should be the one with the best chance. But now, I really couldn't understand what Sun Xiu was thinking. I couldn't help but ask, I don't understand. Didn't you express your feelings for Zhou Zixuan that day, now that she's single again? Why don't you go after her? Why are you trying to persuade me instead? That wasn't love. Sun Siyu shook his head in denial almost without thinking. There was no spite in his eyes, only clarity and honesty. Brother Xiaoyu, I told you before. Sister Zixuan and I grew up together. In my heart, I've truly always seen her as an older sister, as my best friend. That hasn't changed in all these years. Even when I was at my most vulnerable after my divorce and she stayed by my side, I never developed any romantic feelings for her. As for why I asked you that question that day, he gave a bitter smile. It was probably because, when I had just gotten divorced and was at my lowest point, it was Sister Zixuan who stayed with me and comforted me regardless of everything. She gave me the support and warmth I needed most at the time. I mistook that reliance and gratitude for romantic feelings. It wasn't until those few days after you left, when I couldn't reach Sister Zixuan, and went to her house, only to see her looking incredibly haggard, crying and telling me that she had lost you. That was the moment I finally learned the truth. That was when I realized how much damage I had unintentionally caused to your marriage. Sun Siyu took a deep breath, his tone heavy. Brother Xiaoyu, actually, I never told you. My ex-wife's heart also always had another man in it. We've had almost identical experiences. That's why. I couldn't accept the fact that I had become an accomplice in destroying someone else's marriage. I didn't want to be a sinner, and I couldn't get past this hurdle in my own heart. So that day, Sister Zixuan and I laid everything out and made our relationship completely clear. It was also that conversation that made me truly see my own heart. What I feel for Sister Zixuan has never been love. It's just the trust and closeness of a friend. And it's the same for Sister Zixuan toward me. She let go a long time ago. So, Sister Zixuan and I are just like you and me. We will always be good friends, and nothing else will ever get mixed into it. Sun Siyu looked at me, his eyes clear and sincere. Brother Xiaoyu, you have to believe me. The person in Sister Zixuan's heart has long been you. It's just that she realized it too late. Sun Siyu's words fell one by one, like pebbles tossed into a calm lake, stirring up complex ripples in my heart. So, behind the story I didn't know, there was such a completely different perspective. But no matter how sincere he was, even if Zhou Zixuan's feelings for Sun Siyu were truly just like a sister to a brother, it couldn't change my firm resolve to divorce. There is no absolute right or wrong in relationships, but only the people involved truly know the warmth, the coldness, and the torment within. Even if Zhou Zixuan truly had no romantic feelings for Sun Siyu, what about her feelings for me? In those 5 years, did she ever give me even the slightest response of love? If she loved me even a little bit, how could I not feel it at all? So, facing Sun Siyu's sincere and hopeful gaze, I could only remain silent. After a long time, I slowly spoke. Siyu, I understand how you feel, but I can't agree to your request. Zhou Zixuan and I were married for 5 years. The moment I first saw her, I fell for her. I used to be deeply devoted to her, feeling like she was the only one for me. But you have to understand. I looked into his eyes, my tone calm and desolate. If it were solely because of your existence, it would never have been enough to completely wear away my feelings for her and drive me to such despair that I'd choose to give up on life. It was the more than 1,800 days and nights, those seemingly insignificant moments of neglect and brush-offs. It was every promise she easily abandoned. It was the times she didn't hesitate to leave me behind for your sake. These sparse, ordinary little things, these seemingly unintentional actions, slowly piled up over a long period of time, eventually becoming the massive boulder that crushed our relationship. That's why I said it wasn't your fault. Because even without you, these problems in our marriage wouldn't have disappeared. One day, another fuse would have ignited it. My ending with Zhou Zixuan was doomed from the start. Sun Siyu treated me with sincerity, and I repaid him with sincerity. These were all my true feelings. At this moment, Sun Siyu fell silent. He stopped trying to persuade me, a complex emotion flashing in his eyes. Siyu, you and I are different. You should know about my illness by now. I don't have much time left. So, in my final days, I want to live entirely according to my own wishes. I don't want to make a single compromise or force myself in any way. But your life is still very long. Whether it's that childhood experience or your recently ended marriage, they are just temporary storms and gloom on your life's journey. Your path ahead is still paved with sunshine. So, it's not too late for anything. You don't need to feel guilty, and you don't need to blame yourself. You just need to keep moving forward, and you'll be able to embrace the beautiful future that belongs to you. I paused, my tone gentle yet firm. Just consider it embracing it for me. There's no need to dwell on the past anymore. I gently patted Sun Siyu's shoulder. At that moment, he seemed to understand the true meaning behind my words. For the second half of the meal, we tacitly avoided bringing up the topics of relationships and marriage again. Instead, like two old friends who appreciated each other, we chatted about other things. About life, about the future, about some trivial, amusing anecdotes. After we finished, we stood up to say our goodbyes. Take care, Brother Xiaoyu. Sun Siyu looked at me, his eyes sincere. No matter where you go, I hope you stay safe, and everything goes smoothly for you. You too. Keep looking forward. I smiled at him, turned around, and left. Sun Siyu stood in place, watching my retreating back for a long time without moving. His face was expressionless, but his eyes looked as if he had figured something out, or as if he had just unloaded a heavy burden. He bent down and retrieved a miniature voice recorder from an extremely hidden corner under the dining table. Sun Siyu knew that Zhou Zixuan had been listening the entire time. It was just that the prolonged silence at this moment made the atmosphere feel a bit heavy. Sister Zixuan, Sun Xiu spoke softly into the miniature microphone. Are you okay? There was a long silence on the other end. After quite a while, Zhou Zixuan's hoarse, choked-up voice finally came through. I'm fine, thank you, Xiu. Really thank you. If it weren't for you, I might never have had the chance in my life to hear Xiao Yu's true thoughts. Sun Xiu sighed softly. It's nothing. You helped me out of so much darkness. It's the least I could do. It's just that Brother Xiao Yu's attitude is much more resolute than we imagined. Sister Zixuan, do you think you still have a chance? Zhou Zixuan couldn't guarantee an answer to that question. Her emotions were incredibly complicated right now, like a knocked-over bottle of mixed flavors. Before this, she had stubbornly believed that my departure was because I still cared about her past with Sun Xiu. But just now, hearing those words of mine with her own ears, did she suddenly realize that perhaps she had never truly understood this man? The pain she had inflicted on him was far deeper and heavier than she had ever imagined. But was everything truly beyond saving? Zhou Zixuan was unwilling to accept it. She stayed silent for a long, long time. So long that Sun Xiu thought she wouldn't answer. Before Zhou Zixuan finally spoke up slowly. Her voice was very soft, yet exceptionally firm. I don't know if it can be saved, but I know my own heart very well. I love him. I hope that, for the rest of his life, he will be free from pain, free from illness, and live in peace and happiness. If one day, his future truly has no place for me, that's okay too. At least he'll be healthy and happy. At least I tried, and I won't have any regrets. Zhou Zixuan said that last sentence with unusual calmness, yet it carried a desperate, point-of-no-return kind of resolve. Sun Xiu was deeply moved hearing this, an unconscious smile of relief appearing on her face. Sister Zixuan, go for it bravely. I will always support you. This is also what Brother Xiao Yu said. What does the storm matter? What does failure matter? They are just temporary setbacks in life. As long as we keep moving forward, they will eventually pass. The only thing we need to do is live without regrets. Sun Xiu's words were powerful and resonant. Zhou Zixuan gave a solemn mum on the other end, then hung up the phone. It was about time. She needed to go see the man in her heart. On the other side, I had already said goodbye to Li Feng and arrived at the airport, ready to officially embark on my planned final journey around the world. Maybe I would die somewhere along the way, or maybe I could hold on long enough to finish visiting a few planned places before returning to my parents' side. I didn't have any obsession with returning to my roots. I only hoped to see as many different faces of this world as possible in my final days. Then, I'd let fate decide. Wherever I stopped, that would be my final resting place. I checked in, went through security, and arrived at the departure lounge. Perhaps because my mind was relatively calm, my body hadn't felt any particular discomfort. Other passengers were still boarding. I sat by the window, turning my head to look out at the vast tarmac and the blue sky further away. I always believed that in the distance, there must be scenery I longed to see, and a life I had never experienced. I would bravely set off with this broken body and my little remaining time. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Li Feng, with a photo attached. Bro, look, are my eyes playing tricks on me? Why does this back look so much like your ex-wife? Seeing the words ex-wife, my heart skipped a beat. I clicked on the photo. Even though it was just a back profile hurrying past, I was too familiar with Zhou Zixuan. I recognized her almost instantly. The photo was obviously taken at the airport, and judging by the lighting and angle, it was taken just a moment ago. Right after, Li Feng dropped me off and left. An ominous premonition suddenly surged in my heart. Could this woman be haunting me like a lingering ghost again? When did you take this? I immediately replied, just now. After dropping you off, I went to the parking lot to get my car. I just happened to see her, thought it looked like her, so I snapped a pic. Just now. Then wouldn't she be on the same flight as me? I immediately stood up and scanned the entire departure lounge. There weren't many passengers left near the gate. Most were already lining up to board. If Zhou Zixuan was on my flight, she should have already boarded or be in line. I didn't see her. It was probably just a coincidence. Or maybe she was also here to catch a flight, but a different one. I breathed a slight sigh of relief and sat back down. But just as I closed my eyes to rest, waiting for the final boarding call, the slightly hurried clicking of high heels approached from a distance. It stopped right by the seat next to me. Immediately after, a familiar faint fragrance wafted over, along with a feigned voice of surprise. Oh, what a coincidence. Old classmate. My body stiffened, and I reluctantly opened my eyes. Sure enough, Zhou Zixuan's flushed face appeared right above the seat next to me. She looked like she had run all the way here, her hair a bit messy, but her eyes were full of unhidden sparkles and a sly finally caught you look. Rushing like this, and it's a coincidence? Who are you kidding? If it weren't for Li Feng's photo, I might have believed her a little, but now. I remember you having a very strong sense of time. You hate rushing the most. I looked at her, calmly pointing out the flaw in her act. Zhou Zixuan blinked, the smile on her face deepening with a touch of playfulness. You pay so much attention to me, huh? Do you still have feelings for me? Then should I consider asking you to remarry me? One sentence instantly left me speechless again. The plane began to taxi and take off. I would be temporarily cut off from everything on the ground for 2 or 3 hours. The good news was that no one could disturb me during these hours. The bad news was that the person who could disturb me the most was sitting right next to me, and she looked like she had absolutely no intention of letting me go. Surprisingly, the journey wasn't as unbearable as I'd imagined. Zhou Zixuan was much quieter than I expected. She didn't endlessly chatter about remarrying or getting treatment. She didn't cry and apologize anymore either. Most of the time, she just quietly looked out the window at the sea of clouds, or closed her eyes to rest, or secretly peeked at me from the corner of her eye. Occasionally, she would hand over a bottle of water or a thin blanket. Her movements were so natural, as if we were truly just old classmates traveling together. Gradually, I wasn't as repulsed by being with her as I was at the beginning. At least having someone beside me made the journey less lonely. It's just that I could never figure out exactly what method she used to always accurately track my whereabouts. This kind of coincidence, once or twice is by chance, but 3 or 4 times is definitely intentional. Zhou Zixuan was like a piece of sticky candy I couldn't shake off, clinging to me for nearly a week. No matter where I decided to go on a whim, she would always appear in front of me shortly after I arrived. Then she'd use that "what a coincidence" old classmate act to deal with me. I could only remain speechless. I had used this kind of little trick for over a decade when I was chasing her back then. I had long since perfected it. Now that she was using it on me, it really was karma. Although she kept her promise and never mentioned remarrying, only interacting with me as an old classmate. Seeing this familiar face swaying in front of me every day always gave me the illusion that we hadn't divorced. This feeling was very bad. I finally couldn't take it anymore. In the courtyard of an ancient town inn, I stopped Zhou Zixuan, who was just about to bump into me, and got straight to the point. "Zhou Zixuan, tell me the truth. What method are you using to find me every single time?" Zhou Zixuan blinked, looking completely innocent. "It's very simple. The method is..." She reached out a finger and pointed at the sky. "What do you mean?" I frowned. "It means it's destined by heaven." She tilted her head, smiling like a sly fox. Speechless, I stayed silent for a few seconds before speaking. "Superstitious nonsense. Can't you just go back to your own life? Don't you have to work?" "I quit," Zhou Zixuan answered crisply, looking at me with serious eyes. "Work isn't important. My whole world is right in front of me. This is the life I want. What can I do? No one can change what heaven has destined." Zhou Zixuan's attitude gave me a headache. I finally couldn't hold back, and proposed a condition. "I don't believe in destiny. I just want to spend my final time quietly alone. If there really is some kind of destiny," I looked at her, "then why don't we make a bet?" Zhou Zixuan's eyes lit up, and she immediately leaned in. "Bet on what?" I took a deep breath and stated the plan I had already thought out. "Didn't you say finding me is destined by heaven? Fine. This time, neither of us will bring our phones. Just a subway card and some spare change, right here in this city. Until the last subway train ends tonight. If we can bump into each other in a specific carriage on a specific train, then I'll believe. You. I'll believe in this damn destiny." Zhou Zixuan raised an eyebrow. "And the stakes?" "The stakes are," I looked at her, "whoever wins has to unconditionally agree to one request from the other, and no half-hearted compliance. You have to cooperate wholeheartedly." "Really?" Zhou Zixuan was instantly thrilled. A radiant smile she couldn't hide spread across her face. "You can't go back on your word?" "Of course I won't." "Then if I win?" Zhou Zixuan said immediately, her eyes incredibly serious. "My request is that you come back with me, and properly receive treatment. Cooperate actively, and you're not allowed to give up." It actually wasn't a request to remarry. I breathed a slight sigh of relief in my heart and nodded. "Then my request is not important," Zhou Zixuan interrupted. She was brimming with confidence, her eyes shining like stars. "Because I'm definitely going to win." I really didn't know where she got this confidence from. In a completely unfamiliar metropolis with over a dozen subway lines, hundreds of stations, and countless intersecting passengers, without any communication devices, unable to agree on a time and place, relying solely on a chance encounter, the odds were lower than winning the lottery jackpot. 5 minutes later, Zhou Zixuan and I met in the hotel lobby. We checked each other to confirm we only had a subway card and some spare change, with no phones or other electronic devices. The bet officially began. We went downstairs together and walked into the nearest subway station. Before the turnstiles, we looked at each other. "Well then," Zhou Zixuan smiled at me. "Good luck, old classmate. You too." We turned and walked towards 2 turnstiles in opposite directions, swiping our cards to enter. We stepped onto different escalators, merging into the crowds heading in different directions. Our figures completely disappeared from each other's sight as the subway doors closed. At that moment, I completely sighed in relief. What destiny? If there really was a God, why did he let me get an incurable disease? Why did he make me spend 5 years only to end up with a dead heart? I didn't believe in heaven, only in myself. Just like how I rode the subway for one stop, walked out of the nearest exit, and then quickly walked all the way back to the hotel. I had already packed my luggage. I returned to the room, grabbed my suitcase, and checked out in one smooth motion. In the same subway network, 2 different people have millions of possible intersections. Perhaps there really would be one encounter. But Zhou Zixuan and I were no longer on the same path. This bet was, from the very beginning, an illusion destined never to come true. I dragged my luggage out of the elevator, and went to the hotel front desk to check out. The receptionist smiled as she processed it, then suddenly seemed to remember something. She looked up and said to me, Mr. Yang from room 1206, right? Checking out? Okay, please wait a moment. Your wife booked our hotel's private airport transfer service for you. The driver is already waiting at the door, or you can get in the car to rest first. The receptionist's words made my brain instantly short-circuit. I subconsciously repeated, my wife? Yes, Mrs. Yang is waiting in the car for. The receptionist smiled and pointed to a black commercial van parked right at the hotel's main entrance. I was dumbfounded. That ominous premonition in my heart instantly skyrocketed to its peak. I dragged my luggage and quickly walked out of the hotel, heading straight for that car. I yanked open the back door. Sure enough, Zhou Zixuan was sitting upright in the back seat, wearing an I-knew-it smile, quietly looking at me. You cheated. I looked at her in astonishment, barely able to form a complete sentence. Zhou Zixuan smiled without saying a word. After a long while, she softly gave an irrelevant answer. Xiao Yu, I knew you would secretly run away. I was speechless. After a long time, I finally squeezed out, you definitely cheated. Otherwise, how did you know I'd come back to the hotel? How did you know I'd check out and leave immediately? Zhou Zixuan didn't answer directly. She just pulled out today's subway card from her bag. The card was brand new, obviously never used even once. She handed the card to me, her eyes serious and gentle. If I could cheat, I would willingly use any method to trade for you to be free from illness and disaster, to live a long life, and stay by my side forever.